Hey, yo, we're live. Mike Crawford, Young Jerks, got the special panel, the Dream Team, the Dream Team here. Mazza Media, what's up, man?
Mike, how you doing? I'm doing great today.
Ready to go tonight? I mean, we missed the night, and now it's 2 days of testimony.
Absolutely. I finally got a chance to mow my lawn, so I was glad I did it after all today's rain. But it was raining in the courtroom, and it was raining in favor of Karen Reed all day long.
It's amazing. It's
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
Like I keep waiting for something bad to come out. I don't know. What do you think, Attorney Bederow?
That was something else today. I keep saying I've never seen anything like this, and then every day it's worse. Today was 4 or 5 hours of mostly irrelevant testimony, cumulative testimony, except for the fact that they inadvertently struck a hole in their motive that they've been offering. They established that the car of John O'Keefe's car was in position before Karen Reed backed into it at about 5 in the morning. So, this dastardly argument that maybe she staged the accident by moving the car, a prosecution witness took care of that. And I mean, the thing that struck me the most was just watching this prosecutor ask 6, 7 witnesses the same exact questions. What were they wearing? What were they doing?
What was the music? I was waiting for him
Uh,
to ask if there was a Neil
Actually, I,
Diamond cover
I
band.
I was with bated breath waiting to get the result of the girls Canton Foxborough basketball game.
I know. That's what
He
I was
kept
holding on
going.
to
Who
myself.
won?
He told us who the home team was, who they were playing, where were you sitting, and I'm waiting. Who won? Who won? And he left that on the table. The
Yeah,
one
that's
Yeah.
crazy.
I still didn't find out. The people were singing along to the music, but we didn't find out who the band was. I was waiting for him to ask who the band. He tried that. Some of them didn't seem to know the music, but he was asking about the music. He was asking about the games. He was asking about everything, but what he's supposed to be asking about, right?
Yeah, and he didn't know what he was going to get. I mean, lawyers can see these things. When he was asking these witnesses about the video, when someone watches video, you say, I'm showing you exhibit whatever. Have you ever seen this before? When did you see it? Did I show it to you in my office? Do you recognize this? And of course, you've gone over it in your office and he tells you what's going to happen. But did you notice how each witness was kind of like, that might be me. I don't remember. It's literally the truth that they just never went over this until today. And he called these people and he's been telling the jury that there's this crazy motive, that she's this, batshit crazy psycho, got angry, and just decided to mow him down. And, maybe they have evidence they had a fight. I'm not sure anybody particularly will care about that. But to a man and woman, everyone today established that very shortly before John O'Keefe was killed. I mean, we're talking, very shortly, literally before he went to at least the area of the Alberts house, that they were lovey-dovey, I think one of them said.
That was the word I just
Correct.
wrote that down. She
Catherine
said
said that.
exactly that.
Yeah,
Lovey
lovey-dovey.
dovey.
Lovey-dovey, and how in awe she was of him for how he takes care of these poor children, how looking forward to doing this, how they were physically affectionate. I think there was some video of that as well. And you just sit there and you say, what is this guy doing? And I mean, a lot of people, I saw there was buzz today that he's tanking the case. He's not tanking the case. He's just not competent. I mean, that's a conversation we can have, but he's not tanking the case. He's just not up to the task. And I think that's been obvious for some time. But
Especially when the facts are on the defense's side.
yeah, but I mean, so what did they accomplish today? That there was a loving relationship, at least shortly before John O'Keefe died, that the car was in position where it was left so that she could not have, staged the accident, at least in terms of moving the car. And they actually started the day off with the dud of the bombshell that they ended with yesterday, which turned out to be more like, a firecracker that didn't quite go off. So they are spinning wheels, going nowhere. And I mean, they're 7 or 8 days into this, and they've literally established Nothing. I mean, they don't have a single relevant fact towards her guilt established. The best they have is an arguable conversation about whether she said I hit him. And I say arguable because their own witnesses are not really clear on that. And their best witness, as you know, is going to get kneecapped when Caitlin Albert testifies. And on top of that, I saw today there were more photographs that came out.
Oh yeah, there's more photos. Katie McLaughlin and Caitlin Albert every day, every day.
They're nowhere. I mean, they're nowhere.
Yeah, it seemed like the defense just keeps winning every single day. A word that I heard from Adam Lally in the past reminded me of what he was doing today.
What's
you
that?
said that unprepared, a fishing expedition. He's going in there just trying to fish for like something. And so far, he's a guy that just keeps putting the worm on the hook and not pulling in the fish. There's not one fish that he's caught so far.
Can I argue? Can I argue that he has no worm on the hook? May I make that argument?
I mean, that seems like it. That would be a good analogy. There's no worm on the hook because there's just nothing there.
I can't say in strong enough terms how stunning watching his performance is. And it's his presence, it's his preparation, it's his strategy. I mean, this guy, and I hate to just keep picking on lawyers and prosecutors, but let's call it is what it is, right? He is awful. And it's embarrassing. The whole country's watching. People are seeing how a criminal trial works on a big case, and they're seeing this bag of shit case. It's horrible.
I thought you were calling him a bag of shit.
No.
Someone just said he doesn't even have a hook. Never mind a worm. He doesn't even have a hook.
And you know what's crazy? For the first time today, he actually showed a pulse when he's talking about Irish goodbyes, right? But he never explained what it was. But I understand it's Boston and everybody seems to know. But that was the first time that he actually showed a little, like, this much fire in the belly and attempting to relate to anyone. And he, his witnesses blew him out of the water. He was clearly frustrated on redirect. And let's be honest, okay? When you call witnesses and the cross-examination is very smooth, very friendly, and very effective, most importantly, and you go to redirect, if you don't know what you're doing, just sit down, take the loss, and maybe don't call the next 5 witnesses who are going to say the same thing. But on redirect, he starts going after them, and these are his witnesses, and he's the one objecting to what's happening to his own witnesses, and it's just a complete fiasco. And I don't know how a jury doesn't see it, because most importantly, 8 days into this or whatever it is, somebody said Foxborough won.
We missed it. I guess the husband said that Foxborough won.
I probably fell asleep because it's just so unimportant in the grand scheme. But jurors can see what's happening. They're not stupid. They're paying attention, and they're 7 or 8 days into it, and they're sitting there saying, when are you going to tell me how exactly she did this, present evidence of why she did it, and give me a reason to believe that these little breadcrumbs that the defense keeps leaving, that, this is some kind of frame up, isn't the case. I mean, even little things like, Albert and Higgins sparring in the bar minutes before they left. I mean, what kind of meathead do you have to be to fall right into what the defense is alleging? What are they doing? This is a probably drunk cop and drunk federal agent, hopefully not armed. Who the hell knows? But squaring up like they're, gonna wrestle in the bar 10 minutes before they leave, and their alleged fixer says, you come with me, meaning Karen, and then that's where you leave off. What are you supposed to draw from that?
Yeah,
and you think to think of it all. I mean, it was sorry, Mike, but real quick, I'll say to think that it wasn't the defense that played that footage.
Exactly.
Prosecution again.
Yep. Exactly, and even today, when there's video, they think there's this video of the car at 8 a.m. and this is a bombshell, right? If they can show that the car was in a different condition at 8 o'clock and had already been essentially the taillight for the most part stripped down, then, it's hard to fathom how the state police or anyone else could have been doing that later. I get it. I mean, that's a fair theory, but the problem is they can't show it. And they, and this is just another example of grainy video. Now, the dash cam video, I don't really blame them for, as opposed to the third grade quality photos on the iPhones that they take. But that picture, it doesn't really show anything. You can't tell. It may show something, but you can't tell. There may be snow on it. It may not show the full side. But if you want to know what the tell is as to why it's not a compelling picture, it's what the DA is not going to do. Because what a real prosecutor would do, if they had a bombshell like that and they knew that the defense was predicated on a frame job, all right? And obviously from the prosecution standpoint, you've got to knock that out. That's a big deal. If you knock that out, a lot of the defense, is really discredited, and you start to wonder perhaps. But what they don't have apparently on their witness list is some kind of technical expert from Lexus come in, explain what that light is, how many models it is, how it works, all of that, or the manufacturer of the LED lights to explain how the light works, how the lens, technically me, but how LEDs show color or the plastic, or show someone to come in. My understanding is that it's like polycarbonate or something like that, which is really, really hard to break.
Smash, yeah.
Right. And it could happen in a car accident, but not so much from a person hitting it, from what I saw. I'm not an expert on that, but they would be establishing all of this, and they would be jamming this down the defense's throat with credible witnesses who could establish that. What they would not be doing is at the end of a direct examination of a cop saying, did you notice anything that day? No. And then later on, did you have a chance to look at it and imply, what did you see? Which Lally has got to know, or perhaps not, based upon other things he does. But you can't do that. I mean, you can't have a witness basically say, I didn't perceive anything at that time, but later on, I decided to look at the light, and in my opinion, this is what I see from the video. He's got to know that that's not proper. It was going to be sustained. And so what happens to his bombshell? He ends on a dud. It goes nowhere. They're never going to get back to this. And he's going to be stuck with an argument and summation saying, look, you can see. And the reality is you can't see.
Yeah.
But moreover, I'm sorry. Let me finish this thought. Yep. There's video that's online. I mean, it was on the news from the car accident that she hit, at 5 o'clock, which appears to show what the damage is, which is not what the state police had. Somehow it got worse. And then there's also some footage from the tow truck as well, which, it's not the best footage in the world, but it also appears to show that. And then the last point is, if this was a human accident, knowing what polycarbonate does, and I'm sure there'll be some testimony from the defense on this, how does it end up with one giant shard and 45 smaller ones? Again, I'm not an expert on this. I find that really hard to understand.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
I have some breaking news in a moment as well. Chris Albert's taking the stand tomorrow, according to WBZ Channel 4.
Wow, that's pretty crazy. Sean McDonough has gone over the taillight footage like you wouldn't believe. And I just go with Sean. I think he's that expert that they wish they had. And I agree. I don't think they're going to have anyone on the stand on any of this crap. It's obvious at this point. They're going to throw Chris Albert on the stand tomorrow. That's who they're going to put on the stand. I mean, I think it's just going to get worse for them putting Chris Albert on the stand tomorrow. Yeah, I just one of the things yesterday I thought was compelling, like what you mentioned with that video when they closed the day. The video was a dud, but what was very interesting was Paul O'Keefe. And I felt bad for the guy because you could tell he really thinks, like, we've been all wondering, how does Paul really feel after he testified? And it seemed like he was staring right at her, like Karen, like it was like, we got you. What do you think? We got this. We got the proof. even though to me it's not proof. It's like not proof at all, like you said.
know,
And it's just like it's very bizarre. What do you think about that? Like influencing the jury because he's right there and he's staring right at her. What did you think about that moment?
well, number one, you're right. The way this closet courtroom is configured, I mean, it's right at the jury, and they certainly see his visceral reaction. On the other hand, you know, I've seen this too many times to count, and we might have even talked about this last week. You know, they've been told a story for the better part of 2 years by the DA and the police, and obviously, you know, John O'Keefe's family is not going to know the truth. They're not going to know if something dastardly happened, which involves, you know, official corruption. They're not going to, you know, clue him into that. So he's been sold this narrative, and it's logical for the family to just, it's easy to believe it and want to believe it because you want closure and you want the bad guy, or as they say in this case, the bad girl, to get caught. And you see this all the time. And from the defense standpoint, you really wish you could go up and explain to them. It's not appropriate, obviously, to talk to him. And, you know, they have to have a wide berth to believe what they want to believe. And you just have to give them the room to do it however they want. But it is sad. And I mean, as far as the reaction, is it appropriate? No. But I mean, he's the brother of a guy who was killed. And the worst part is, I mean, if suppose you're him and you think that Karen did it, and so you want the DA to win, if that's the right term, then what do you think he thinks deep inside, and the rest of John O'Keefe's family, at the just atrocious and pathetic performance that's being put on here by, you know, Lally and his merry band of idiots in the Canton Police Department so far? And we haven't even gotten to the, you know, alleged goon squad yet. I mean, it's terrible. I mean, they're so far behind when they should be so far ahead. Usually in a case like this, at this point, it doesn't mean you should be drawing judgments. You know, you should listen to all the evidence. But if this was going like 98% of murder trials go, at this point, the jury would believe, well, she probably said something. We found some pretty solid evidence right there. So, you know, that's consistent with a car accident. She said she did it. You know, they're coming from the bar. He's going to have the glass, which is a whole nother question to talk about, and all of this other stuff that really points to her doing something. And instead, right now, you know, what's fresh on your mind is, you know, Sully's kid plays baseball. You know, Foxborough won the big girls basketball game. And most importantly, all kidding aside, these two were making, like, you know, googly eyes at each other in love an hour or thereabouts before he was murdered. And, you know, oh, well, there's going to be text messages that show she was pissed off at him later. Okay. I mean, if that's the case, so be it. People fight. But the idea that there was some festering, premeditated, you know, I'm going to just end this, it doesn't make sense. And they also haven't established that she's intoxicated. I don't know how important or not that is, frankly, but
it seems like there's no evidence so far. It's like
so far
the
there's not.
opposite of that. No one said, even the firefighters, the police, nobody said anything about that.
Right. Nobody said that. And, you know, they certainly don't have him leaving with the glass. Maybe there's video of that. I'm not going to assume that they don't have some connection of the glass. But, you know, the other thing you have to wonder about the glass is, did they ever test the glass? I mean, there was a pretty large piece, the bottom of the glass, or you know, the heavy part, as the bartender told us in very important testimony today. You know, did they submit that for testing, for DNA? I mean, what if, again, who knows? What if Brian Albert's DNA or Higgins's DNA was all over that? What if there's, you know, whatever other kind of physical evidence is there or not there? I don't know. But did they do it? I mean, so far, you don't know.
Yeah. And we saw some puffy jackets too in that video, which is interesting. Mazza, what do you think about Paul O'Keefe yesterday at the end of the
Well,
day?
I wasn't a fan of that. I think that I understand that we all want a certain outcome one way or the other, depending on how we see it. But you know, that taillight was kind of like a staggering moment for me too, because it's just, you know, the thing that we have to remember here, and this is the thing I keep reminding myself, and I think that in a way a lot of us have fallen into it, is we all have over the past year have kind of created in our minds exactly how we think it played out. And I think what's happened over the course of the last 2 weeks is that we're finding out that some of the things we thought we had 100% accuracy on what actually happened are just a little bit skewed just a little bit differently. I for one, have always said that I thought the taillight cracked when Karen Reed backed into John O'Keefe's vehicle. When I was seeing that there was no doubt that a square, almost rectangular piece of that taillight actually fell out. So these are some of the things that we're starting to come across right now, is that we're finding out that things are just a little bit different than what we thought. We never knew Jen went near the house. These cops have now confirmed under oath that that was her. That was apparently, quote unquote, told to go in the house, which I don't accept as true. I still question that highly. But we're finding out things are happening just a little bit differently than what we thought, because we're getting more and more evidence as this thing starts to roll out. We now have official photo, video of Brian and Brian, squaring up in the waterfall. But I'll say this about the taillight. Joey Just Saying on X had a great post today. Mike, this is one I actually shared with you. And because I got thrown off because all the people on the other side of the belief system here that think Karen Reed's guilty were throwing it in our face a day or two ago. But Turtle Boy's explanation last night on his show was stellar, as well as Joey Just Saying's breakdown of this too. And basically, we know that when you look at the rear of the vehicle as it's snowing, when they show that shot, the same piece that's missing is the exact same piece that's missing when she leaves John O'Keefe's house to go out and search for him. So we know that wherever that taillight cracked, we know for a fact that she backed into his vehicle, and then that crack of that taillight and that piece coming loose happened right there and then, because it's not there when she pulls out of that driveway. So what was very interesting was that the theory started to become the following, was that, and Turtle Boy broke this down masterfully last night, and I hadn't even thought this through enough to actually come to that realization, but in that taillight photo, it's evident when she leaves the house that the taillight to the right side, right rear of the vehicle is still intact. And like I pointed out several months ago, and Turtle Boy pointed this out again, when that vehicle is being towed away, that taillight is not only intact on the side, it is lit up on the side. And Lauren De Laguna pointed that out a few times as well, that it was glowing red and it was still there. Now, Joey Just Saying pointed out something that was absolutely phenomenal that I hadn't even taken into consideration. Now, he did bring this to the attention of Sean in the Gulf. So that has been brought to his attention, and Sean has seen that. So I just want to let everyone know you don't need to rush to send it to Sean.
I was going to say, the first time I heard about all this was from Sean on the Gulf. So
yeah,
want to make sure we say that.
Yeah. In the piece of the taillight, the fragment that was found by Chief Berkowitz, that's kind of looks like almost like a little axe or something, right? That was over the footprint, which is extremely mysterious, obviously, is indicating that that piece fits into that right side of that taillight. And when you see the footage of Karen Reed pulling out of John's driveway, that piece almost in full shape is lit up on the right side of that vehicle. So in the third picture, Joey Just Saying shared, it says the side marker LED is illuminating, and it's almost exactly the same exact shape. So what this indicates is that the tail light was shattered 2 times, in my opinion, primarily. When Karen backed into John O'Keefe's vehicle, that's shatter number 1. Shatter number 2 is you're missing footage from the Canton Police Department, because I said this, and Olivia agreed with me way back. We had talked about this, and I said, it's my estimation that Michael Proctor allegedly noticed that, and he would have known anyways, because Karen Reed told 2 people that her taillight had cracked, and it even pointed it out to the 2 women that she was with. And they, at some point, could have told Michael Proctor. I don't know. I don't want to make allegations, but I'll just say that's all it is an allegation. So we know that at some point, Michael Proctor must have taken note of that. Now, the one thing Turtle Boy said last night that I wish he had said, but he hadn't thought about it, was he had asked the question, why would they go to such a drastic measure to shatter that taillight on that right side even more? And I put it in the comments, but I don't think he saw it because he has hundreds of people messaging him. The reason why is that they had to justify, in the course of the cover-up, the dog marks on his arm. So basically, a taillight being shattered, as it originally was when Karen backed into John's vehicle, is a very clean break. But if you can make that thing look like it's got the teeth of Jaws
Jagged.
on the right side and jagged, just like you said perfectly, Mike, then you see that's the thing. So that's why they went the distance, because
Frame
basically,
job.
yeah, that's right. They basically said, okay, here's the tail light. Well, his arms are wounded. We need to justify this. So why don't we just shatter the right side of that tail light and spread it all over the damn place and make it seem like it's thing? But even that, even with the break that it currently had and the footage that the photos that they showed, those the way that thing's all broken and shattered, or however it is, from whatever impacts took place, whether Karen backing into John or tampering, there's no way that it's going to cause that many marks on his arm. And once again, it brings it back to the German Shepherd. And I remain convinced that there's three separate attack marks on that arm. I think his elbow are
Yep.
teeth marks. I think his
Exactly.
bicep and tricep are the dog's
Scratch.
left paw. I
Yep.
think that the forearm is the dog's right, but basically the dog went two claws with his
Yep.
mouth and
And a little
romp,
bite.
and that's
Exactly.
where it was. And I think the
That's what
dog
it looks
actually
like to me.
dragged him. Yeah, and I think the dog dragged him to the ground. I think he was in a fight. The dog came in, boom, grabbed him, took him to the ground tactical style like a dog would, and then he goes swinging down, hits his head on the back of that bench that had that mark that was almost as wide as the mark on the back of his head. He comes down, bang, and then at some point those bruises to his eyes either take place before he goes down, or maybe a combination of on the ground and before he went to the ground. That's been my theory for a little bit of a while. But the taillight, I mean, clearly that taillight on that right side's intact, and clearly that's the piece. So even if they did find that, even if they did want to say, well, we found the taillight at 34 Fairview, well, that's great. But the thing is, you could still make an argument from our perspective. You could say, well, yeah, you're right. Maybe that piece of taillight did fall off, but the reason why that taillight was found at the crime scene was because Karen had backed into John O'Keefe's vehicle, and a part of the taillight came off at John's house. And then by the time she got to 34 Fairview, when she was there with Carrie and all them, then it fell off there. I mean, that's still an argument for that. It's, a lot of different things you can go with it, but those are some of my thoughts.
I think the elephant in the room for them that they're going to have to deal with is they had the lieutenant state unequivocally that it shattered in the Sallyport. And so this is interesting. Again, they don't just shatter. You have to put chemicals or something on it. So how in the hell did it shatter in the Sallyport and then somehow miraculously days later, of course, missed by the initial, leaf blowing and all of that there are 45 or so pieces discovered. So how do you get a shard and then 45 shatter pieces when the lieutenant is admitting that there had to be a lot of shattering in our Sallyport? And the next question is this: that is an issue that relates to the integrity of the evidence. Let's assume it's an accident. In other words, that's what he was suggesting. Not that they deliberately did it, but suppose, Officer Dunderhead just made a mistake and destroyed the condition of, the taillight, which is a big deal in this case. How is there no record of that? How does
where is the taillight?
There
Because right
absolutely
now, they show the car
where
the other day at Fairview at 30 at the house, and there's no taillight. Where is the taillight? Where is it? Can we look at it? Can we examine it? Where is it?
In addition to that, there ought to be a report saying, we screwed up and, this guy made a mistake. It got shattered in the Sallyport. Picture, look, just so everyone knows, transparency, because, we're certainly would never plant evidence and things like that. And he just very casually said, yeah, it broke into a lot of pieces. And then, a few days later, they find 45 pieces scattered on the lawn. And I just don't think scientifically that would make any sense. And when you put that with the 5 a.m. video and the tow truck video, the shard that I agree to some extent looks like it could almost fit if you flip it over, kind of slot it in where that is. How do they explain it? And you know what I'm going to say next. I go back to this because this is the most important thing. They have the burden of proof. It's reasonable doubt here. And if they're going to speculate, take a look at the taillight. What do you see? And, Officer Nobody says, I don't know. It looks like it's missing part of the side taillight. That's not convincing proof of what happened. And where's this Berkowitz guy, by the way? You know, they kind of snuck it in through Lank, right? A little bit, that he had to respond, but where's the guy who found it? I mean, where's the evidence explaining? I assume it's coming, but you know, when a jury hears that this guy literally was just driving by,
Yeah.
and there it is, you
Yeah.
know, there it is, because
Right.
the snow melted. I don't.
And
that's
Wanless too.
incredible.
There's the other guy who supposedly took off the taillight. Again, I want to talk about Sean McDonough and Peter Murphy, because Peter Murphy is a former Canton police officer. Sean McDonough grew up in Canton, 30-year law enforcement, most of it with DEA, supervisory agent, special agent. These guys were, everything they said was like, they've been proven true. Everything they've been saying, like, we talked about Wanless on the show. Wanless all of a sudden is part of this thing, where Kevin and them said, no, Wanless isn't included. He's in no reports. It's all BS. It's already come up. I'm wondering if Wanless took off the taillight. We know this now from the prosecution witnesses. We know that Wanless was part of this. Sean McDonough, Peter Murphy, Aiden, all three of them, everything they've been saying has been proven right to me.
It has. I mean, look, I think the taillight is a non-starter in light of all of this, but there was something else yesterday that was really, really significant, and it might have gotten swallowed up by, the so-called bombshell at the end. When right before Lank got off the stand, he basically said a couple of things that were really interesting. Called the state police to take the crime scene, despite knowing it was a dead cop on a dead cop's lawn. They said no. Now, what happens when you secure a crime scene? There are cops there, and you know what? Not every cop is dirty. Let's be fair and honest. Not every state police officer who works with Proctor or whoever. And the point is, if you're going to do something, you don't want it to be a secure crime scene, because stuff gets logged, things get filmed, and witnesses see things, okay? And so the red flag number one was that the state police said, we'll let the Canton Police Department, who admittedly said, we have no clue how to do this. We have a leaf blower and solo cups and a Stop and Shop bag. We've never worked on murder scenes. So the state police won't take the scene. And then they just say, all right, we're done here at 8:00. Let's go get breakfast, right? At 8:00, they left. And that means at 8:00, within 8 hours, or give or take, of the homicide, but more importantly, within approximately 2 hours of anybody knowing about the homicide, the scene was free and clear. And we know it took a couple of days before, what I call the odd job discoveries, look, the golf ball down the pants, here's the evidence. At that point in time, any one of these people who may be involved in something really dastardly could have gone there, and there'd be no record of it. Nobody would know. It's not like people are staring out looking for someone to come, as opposed to if there was a crime scene, it gets trickier. And of course, if there's a crime scene, what else do? They search, right? And if the state police do an official search right then and there, and they don't find anything, it looks even more dastardly. So I think the fact that this scene was open, it allows the defense theory a lot of breathing room about planting evidence, whether, people want to believe it or not. I mean, I know that's an unpleasant thought, but it's unheard of that a crime scene on a homicide, or at least a certainly suspicious death, even if they don't know it's a homicide, would be abandoned within an hour and a half by a podunk police department that admittedly doesn't know what they're doing. And the more experienced department says, we're not interested. We're not doing this. That is incredible testimony. It's impossible to believe that could be an honest, normal procedural thing. And there's something dastardly with that. That makes no sense.
Crazy. It's absolutely shocking, considering that they had closed that crime scene off and basically, released the scene basically. And then hours later, the state police were there. So there was a period between the Canton police there. Then just after 8:00, okay, let's go get breakfast at Dunk's. And then hours later, the state police arriving and whatever. I did misspeak about earlier about the vehicle that returned to 34 to find John. I believe that was actually Kerry Roberts' vehicle, if I'm not mistaken. So I'd misspoken about that. So just wanted to correct myself there. So
and I want to mention about the puffy jacket thing. John, in the video we saw today, John wasn't wearing a puffy jacket. We saw that,
Right.
But other people were. Isn't that weird? I mean,
Yeah.
that's just a weird thing. That's what we were talking about. I
Well,
think it was either Higgins or Albert.
yeah.
I'm not sure which
Well,
one.
what it suggests to you is, I think his
Albert.
name is
Yeah.
Nuttall, right? The young guy, the EMT who kind of biffed on that. What it suggests is, they gave him too much information and he got confused and had brain freeze and mixed it up. There's something else that happened yesterday. I don't want to steer the discussion away from where you want to go, but can I add something that
Yes.
there was a lot of discussion from the police, and this is, again, just pathetic, about, the lack of probable cause as their default answer to do nothing. Okay. And if that's the way that they investigate, then they should just disband the Canton Police Department and start over and get people who are willing to be, honest. Because so probable cause is a legal term that has meaning when you want to arrest someone, you need probable cause, or else it's an illegal arrest and evidence could be suppressed and all of that. The other time you need probable cause is to get a search warrant. That's true. You need a judge to read an affidavit and you need probable cause. But these guys were saying something totally different to a man. Every one of them, I think 3 of them, or at least 2 of them, were saying that we couldn't even try to figure out what was happening because we had no probable cause. And that is the just dumbest, most dishonest thing.
Like they could ask questions, they could interrogate you, they could do all kinds of stuff.
This is how you do it. I mean, this is the famous detective, go detect something. Dead cop on other cop's lawn. Lank admits, you know what? It kind of looks like he might have been in a fight. All right, you don't have to draw conclusions, right? You've spoken to McCabe. Now, what does she tell you? He was coming in the house. He was supposed to. He didn't, but he was supposed to. Okay. Now we find him out on the lawn with one shoe on, with all these weird injuries, and we have no other information other than, I mean, right then and there, the most logical thing would be, did he ever make it in the house? Again, you don't even have to have a dastardly thought. It's about gathering information, tracking down. Does anybody know what happened to this guy? Did he leave? Was he drunk? Did he tell you I'm suicidal? Who knows, right? And they don't want to do it. And then when they do go in there, when the questions are like, well, did you look around? Did you ask this or that? And he says, I couldn't do it. I couldn't look in the basement. I couldn't look anywhere. The answer is this: you can ask for consent. Okay. If somebody agrees to let you look around their house as a citizen, you don't need probable cause. If you have their consent, you can do it. So in theory, if you say, do you mind if I just kind of, look around? One of 2 things could happen. Probably, I mean, look, if it's the basement, they probably say no if something's down there, obviously. But what you'd expect a citizen, and more importantly, a police officer, let's remember that this is a police home, who should be more cooperative with law enforcement than law enforcement, right? And if you say, can I look around? And he says, no. Now you have a right to do that legally, but then the investigating police officer has a right to process that information and say, you know what? That's suspicious. So let me ask a few more questions. Well, are you sure? Is there something down there? Are you sure he didn't come in the house? And when you start getting these, fakakta answers, then if nothing else, you start saying, can I get a warrant? Are there things I can do? Maybe I should try to find out where they were. But these guys were like, I couldn't get, didn't have probable cause. We're done here. It's 8:00. Let's go to Duncan, like you said. And
Seems convenient that they left the crime scene open. The state police could have been there. Seems like there was some coordination there until the state police showed up, basically just in enough time, for them to get access to the car. I mean, that's basically what it looks like to us. Is there was a window when they had access to that car, the state police, and they didn't secure the scene until after they had access to that car.
When they go back, by the way, because again, suspicion can be developed over a series of incidents over a series of time. Even if they leave initially at 6:30 and they're not ready to do anything, you still might say, gee, did he ever get in the house? And then something really remarkable happens a couple hours later when, McCabe has, a recollection of, I didn't mention this before. Well, what a real detective would do is listen to her. Number one, isolate her. That was ridiculous how they were all interviewed together and in earshot. That is like any detective will tell you that's like, rule 101. You don't let them huddle up and hear, tailor their story or whatever. But what a real curious detective also would have done, doesn't have to be confrontational, is just say, is there any reason you could think of that you just didn't remember that earlier and you were remembering it now? Was this like a group? Did you speak to them? What triggered that memory? How is it took you all this time? And you can even ask, like, when you went in the house, did you talk to anyone? They had no interest in this. And this is the fundamental problem with this entire case, whether you think they're corrupt or not.
Yeah.
Had no interest in looking for any alternative than Karen Reed, even though there were many reasons to do so. And that includes, by the way, after they arrested her. I mean, if they're going to tell you with a straight face that they didn't find it interesting what happened in the Albert house and yard in the months that followed, I mean, I think you're being intellectually dishonest if you don't at least say that's weird. Okay.
Yeah,
Maybe it's
weird.
nothing, but that's weird.
All of it's weird. What do you got, Mazza?
No, I'm just studying up on this tail light just a little bit, but I'd say definitely I was watching the Core TV video back, and there's definitely some, missing tail light there a little bit, but it's consistent with what you see in the image where she's parked at John O'Keefe's house again. So like I said, I just think they tampered with that thing after the fact, and then what they did was they just tried to butter up that crime scene a little bit to make it fit their narrative. If they had 45 pieces of taillight, why are there no photos? Why are there no videos of this? Why do we have just one image of a piece of taillight on the ground in the snow with a footprint underneath it, which indicates that someone stepped in that location prior to that piece of taillight being there? It makes no sense at all. So it is clearly it's something is clearly amiss here, and something was clearly afoot in this. I noticed some of these footages they show at Sallyport are also just rear shots for the most part. You see the back of it, but you don't see the right side of it.
They have no perspective. This is another. I'm glad you said that.
Yeah.
In a real police department, when they take crime scene photographs, you're in the hundreds. Just, I mean,
exactly. Every angle,
every hundreds and hundreds.
I mean, you ever get in a car accident? I got dinged. My door got someone rammed into it while it was parked. They wanted so many goddamn photos. It was ridiculous. Yeah.
If not more than 1,000. I mean, they would have so many different pictures of the car. And then the other thing they would do, because they had a search warrant for the car, they would have tore it apart inside and they'd have pictures of that. Even if they didn't recover anything, they would have, that shard of glass with one of those little crime scene rulers telling you where it is. Exactly. They'd have a person standing next to it. They'd take, again, the perspective shot.
Do they have I mean, I can't believe that they don't have somebody that's like a professional crime scene photo person that didn't document all this. Where was that person?
I think it's Proctor and the state police, who of course are cubbied up literally in their office. And there's no separation there. It's
bonkers.
Crazy. And Alan Jackson exposed this right before the jury as well. And I thought this was one of the biggest home runs he's hit, and that the defense has hit so far, was that they basically called attention to the fact that, beyond the solo cups and beyond the Stop and Shop bag, if we look a little bit deeper, Alan Jackson just didn't stop with that. He went into, well, why isn't it labeled? Why isn't it sealed? Why is that bag sat in that port?
There's no reason for that.
January 29th to February 1st. And that guy, I forget his name now, Lank, couldn't even identify it. And he goes, can you not identify it because it's not properly labeled? That right there, that moment right there is enough reasonable doubt that you need to free Karen Reed of all this. That moment alone.
That's the thing about Lank. What do you think the jury is going to trust any evidence or anything connected to Michael Lank at this point?
Well, he's interested. Here's the thing about him. He definitely, when he's not under attack or getting exposed with stupid things, projects and presents much better than the other ones, just in terms of his communicating and the way he takes on the reading glasses. And I coach youth sports, and he doesn't, with that. But when he tries to say with a straight face, for example, when he's kind of getting, the grill to him a little bit, and he says, yeah, the evidence bags are basically Stop and Shop bags. It looks like the same damn thing. again, he's just not prepared to testify because, I mean, if you're a juror and you've already heard about the leaf blowers, the solo cups, the dirty rag, everything else, and this guy's saying, it's the same thing, and and this whole concept of temporary evidence, where anyone has access to it, and and look, there's a lot more to come on this, and
that was a weird phrase he used, temporary
weird
evidence. Have you ever heard that before?
No.
Sitting in the bag for 2
only
days.
evidence temporarily. Like what?
2 or 3
What does
days.
that mean?
Yeah.
What does that even mean?
Well, I think what he said was what it means is it's generally available to anyone in the Canton Police Department.
Yeah.
Because essentially what we do is put it in the
secured.
refrigerator.
Yeah,
Like
it's
next to
unsecured
somebody's
evidence.
Lost bag.
It's basically
it's like somebody's lunch bag.
Yeah,
Well, if
unsecured.
they think about a shop bag, they might think it's lunch.
Right. It sat there from January 29th to February 1st. And just to put that in perspective, that's Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and then Tuesday. He testified to that thing had sat there in that bag for that amount of days. And there goes all your DNA evidence. I mean, it's just.
And they take pictures of it right next to the SUV.
Correct.
And don't have any explanation for, first of all, why is it there? There's no reason for that to be there on the floor. And if somebody was taking a picture of it, then they should have had, again, a perspective photo of whichever cop or lab technician or whoever is sitting there, next to it, making it clear, like, this is what we have. And instead, it's just lying next to the car where anyone has access, from a crime scene that wasn't secure, from, people who found it by scooping it with solo cups, from people who put it in a Stop and Shop bag, from people who said they have no experience on murders or crime scenes, from people who said the state police wouldn't take the crime scene, from a crime scene that was unsecured for 3 days. And oh, by the way, the guy who ultimately took it is Proctor, who texted, "Don't worry about Brian Albert. He's a cop. He's good. I'm looking for nudes, and I wish you would kill myself." And you haven't even gotten to the real witnesses and the real evidence. In this case, this is DOA. It is.
It is dead on arrival for sure.
It is. I mean, this is where are they going?
What about what's going to happen tomorrow? You made the breaking news that we heard from WCVB. I guess it's funny. They got the scoop. I guess they got it from their legal analyst who was representing one of the Albert brothers, I'm guessing. What do you think? Chris Albert is testifying tomorrow. What's up with that? Like, what is he going to say, and how's that going to look? How is that going to turn out? I'm predicting it's going to be a disaster.
I think it has to be. I mean, look, ultimately, he'll deny any involvement, of course. He'll deny any I'm talking about Cross. I'm jumping ahead. He'll deny any knowledge of what happened. He'll deny all of this. But, from the jury's perspective, again, the breadcrumbs that have already been left in a great way, the defense is so far ahead in terms of skill and 3 steps ahead and sticking to their theme. They've already established that Chris Albert is a Canton cop.
This is the brother. He's the pizza shop owner.
I'm sorry. Right. That's the other Albert. Okay, same difference, actually. But that,
he's a selectman pizza shop owner that doesn't pay his taxes.
I'll tell you something. Selectman is probably as bad as cop. I mean, that's part of the political whatever. But he's an Albert of Canton, as they say.
He's the least successful one.
Okay. The least successful one.
What does Turtle Boy call him?
Fredo.
Yeah, Fredo. Does he say he's the lowest IQ too, or is that someone else? I'm getting confused.
Yeah,
he's got
yeah.
Fredo. I could have been someone. I'm smart.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Chris recently snapped at a select board meeting and said, called a woman embarrassing.
Jen O'Donnell, yeah. You're embarrassing.
You're embarrassing. I think he's going to be embarrassing tomorrow. That's my prediction.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting how then it would sound like of all, the Alberts and McCabe's or whatever, that he's the, one of the less important ones.
He talks the most. That's the problem with him. Yeah.
Double verification on this from
He's
Christina.
the one who went after the Canton 9. He calls the special prosecutor to arrest people protesting outside his pizza shop. He's very, and and he's very vocal in terms of sending nasty messages to people. We believe he sent anonymous letters in the postal to people. that kind of stuff. But
Well,
at select board meeting, he never speaks.
here's the thing, and I hate to do this, but pretend you're Lally, with all apologies, but just putting back in the old days prosecutor hat on again. The DA is calling him to establish what exactly?
Exactly. He was there that night at the waterfall.
Okay.
That's about it, right?
Yeah. So let me tell you something. If it's going to
And
be
he,
another,
I know, and he also invited John there that night. I guess John came by. They're gonna say John came by with his nephew to the pizza joint before.
Okay, so it's going to be more of you were in the waterfall. What was John O'Keefe wearing? And because that has not yet been established 8 times, so we should do that again. And then what will he be the one who's the source of? I saw tension, and I saw with this.
And who's gonna believe that from him?
Well, I'll tell you something. Once again, if he's the source of the so-called bad evidence that the waterfall is supposed to establish, then why in the hell did you call 6 or whatever the number was today,
I know, right?
Of these people who, by the way, were far and away the most credible people in this case? I mean, they didn't want to be there. You could tell they felt terrible for John.
Yeah.
They had no animosity towards Karen. And they were
the husband and wife. They were the smart ones. They were like, "Hey, let's go home. We're not going to that house. Are you kidding me? It's 10:30, 11, it's midnight, 12:30. We're going home. We're too old for this shit."
The Greek name, the lawyer that they called.
Yeah, they were the smart ones. They went home. But it's funny though, because we talk about Chris Albert. Like, why, if he's going to be the one that shit talks, which he could be, I don't think anyone's going to believe it. Number one, but the thing is, I think the reason they didn't call him yet is because the cross is going to open him up to all kinds of shit. The guy might ask about his son. His son was at the house that night. Was he? What time to leave? Yeah. All that other stuff. You don't pay your taxes. Maybe they'll ask about that. Maybe they'll ask about the letters that were sent to residents. I don't know. There's so much shit. I don't know where they could go, like where they'll actually go. Yeah, the Lapolito brothers. He was there for that with Lank. I mean, there's so much shit that we could get into with Chris. I don't know what the cross is going to be, but I could just feel that. Like, that could go so sideways. Chris is a hothead too. Chris is, you could tell. We watch him at the select board every month. This dude, I feel like he's threatened me subliminally with other people and on anonymous accounts. Like, I think this guy is going to lose his shit tomorrow.
I'm shaking my head only because if the real ostensible purpose in calling him from the DA perspective is another person at the bar and to give a different view of O'Keefe and Karen and whatever else happened at the bar, what you might not want to do as a prosecutor is call 5 inconsistent witnesses who are entirely credible first. I mean, at this point, it's a conclusive fact based on the evidence in the case that at least up until the point where Karen and John were getting ready to leave, that they were lovey-dovey. There's that buzzword again. And if he's going to say things were bad in the bar and all of this, it's on its face, it doesn't make any sense. And that's before he's even getting crossed. I mean, the jury's going to say, what is this guy on his own planet? Oh, but he's in Albert, and here we go. And I mean, I'm not even sure if I were the DA, why am I calling him?
Yeah, I think it's a sign of desperation. Right? Like they thought maybe they might shake something out on their fishing expedition with the like you said, the more stable people, and it didn't work out. So now they got to throw this guy on because they got no other choice.
Again, I go back to something we talked about previously that, for better or for worse, Lally is a patty maker. He doesn't make filet. He's, on the low scale of how to do this. And it would appear that he just has a witness list that he sketched out, months ago. Here's how I'm going to do it. And he's just going down the list in whatever order he predetermined. And he's not flexible. He's not adjusting. He's not reading the room. He's not seeing how this works. And he's just, this is how I'm going to do it. I don't want to lose focus. I don't want any original thought. And that, to me, that's what appears he's doing. There's just no common sense adjusting, which at a trial, it never goes as planned perfectly. Things always, it's like when you cross-examine someone, you could sketch out how you want to do it. But if you get a great answer, you don't just leave it alone and check off a question and keep going. You got to hit and go where they lead you, and then circle back if it's appropriate. And I just don't think he does that. And I just think he's, who's next?
Right. Chris Albert tomorrow. This comment came in. Cynthia Lynch. Thank you for the donation, Cynthia. She said 1994, Chris Albert killed a man and fled. He did a hit and run. He turned himself in over 30 hours later. And then the judge's father in this case was the one who was his lawyer for that case, which is strange. She's going to be the judge tomorrow. Her father represented the guy that's going to be on the stand tomorrow, apparently.
Well, there's the money question. Do they have the balls to ask about that case and then say, by the way, who's your lawyer? Probably not.
Yeah. I don't think so, right? You don't want to piss off the judge that way. I don't know. Do you? Doesn't really matter in a way.
I mean, look, everyone's been talking what they think of her, but I'm not sure at this point. I would put that in front of the jury. I'm going to assume, and you should never assume. I understand that they previously had moved to recuse her, not for that reason per se, but I'm going to assume that was at least worth a footnote in the motion about that. And I don't know if there's even been a ruling that limits the amount across. 1994 is a long time ago. On the other hand, if he killed someone, and did he essentially get away with it? Did he get a slap on the wrist?
Yeah, pretty much.
And then he gets elected a selectman in this town.
Yep. And didn't tell anyone about it when he was running?
Well,
didn't tell anyone about his tax liens or any of that other.
When did he run?
I don't know, like I don't know. This is his first term. He'll be up for election in the next cycle. And so he's halfway through his term.
All right. So it's just a couple of years.
Yes.
And he ran for selectman and didn't disclose that he was involved in an incident where he killed someone.
Yes.
And he had tax liens and whatever. And did he have a disclosure form? Do we know which required him to disclose any of this?
No, apparently it's not required, but he ethically probably should have done it. Made it part of his story. I mean, I think
bring
people
it out.
would have accepted that.
That's dishonest.
Yeah. I made him. I think people would have been fine with it if you made it part of your story and say, you know what, I screwed up when I was younger.
Yeah, no,
I learned from it and I've changed, and that's why I'm doing this. You know what I mean? Like people would have.
Doesn't sound like he has the character to do that.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like I said, I wonder if it's going to be Alan Jackson doing the cross-examination. Christina Rex from WBZ has officially tweeted that he is estimated or expected to be on that stand tomorrow. But I'll tell you, I mean, you may want to just try, if it's Alan Jackson or David Yannetti, whomever, doing that cross-examination, you may try to get a little bit, poke him with the stick a little bit just to see if you can get him to react a little bit and try to maybe speak out of place and, admit the thing. Basically like Jack Nicholson and A Few Good Men. Tom Cruise just kept prodding him until he started to say dumb things because he lost his, it got to his ego. So if that's the,
how about, I just thought of something, Mass. I bet this is where they're going to go tomorrow. What Turtle Boy reported right from the beginning. I believe it was Turtle Boy. The bear cans on the lawn, the pictures and the ring videos, about the son, and he was the neighbor of John O'Keefe. That's the other thing. Chris Albert was also the neighbor of John O'Keefe. Wow. So it could get into that stuff about the son. They could ask a lot of different questions.
Did your son have a known feud with John O'Keefe? Was your son in the house at that time? What time did he get home that night? Yeah, questions like that.
Clearly one of the things definitely that they'll get into is, when the son went, when he left, whether phone calls, you have records of that, And, I don't know what the answer is going to be on that, but this is the kid who's also got some problems, right? This is the kid with the bruised knuckles and all that.
Yeah.
And he's a tough guy. And
he is a tough guy from the videos anyways.
Okay. And this is the one who called for a ride home at like 12:15 or something like that.
It's changed. Who knows what time he actually got a ride home. He actually, you're right. He called Julie Nagel for the ride home and then didn't go home with her, right?
Okay, so right around that.
Oh, actually, I'm mixing them up. Julie Nagel called for a ride for her brother. Yeah, I'm mixing them up. Sorry. Go ahead.
But the point is, if he left right around that time, that's a hell of a coincidence. And it also begs the other question, which was, did you see a guy standing out there? Did you see a guy dead on the lawn? Did you, was there discussion in the house? Where is this guy? Is he showing up? I mean, he's supposed to show up. What was McCabe saying? You could go on and on
Exactly.
and just fish. You don't need him to be the bad guy per se, but there's a wealth of information that could be extracted from him, whether it be true or false.
Now, I wonder about this too, because the defense has what we don't have. They have this whole federal file, 3,000 pages. I mean, what kind of stuff could they be knowing and kind of using against them? Quizzing him. How would they use that? How would they use that because I feel like that's going to come into play here, and it's probably been coming into play with a lot of the questions they're asking because they already know stuff that we don't know.
I mean, look, if they have witness statements, the feds, like as we believe they do with Higgins, right? I mean, everybody says he made a proffer, which again means there is something called an FBI 302, which definitely exists. We don't know if other witnesses said anything, but even if this kid or guy, Chris Albert, didn't make any statements, he should have been mentioned by Higgins, so they could have information from a Higgins statement that they can't cross-examine him literally and shoving another person's report in his face, but they can certainly use that report and say, did you do this? Did you do this? And if they do it in a way where it sounds way out of left field, and as you're sitting there going like this, as you're staring at a form, the jury is going to figure out what is he looking at? Why is he doing this? What does he have? What's going on? So you can use that information, whatever you have, to just try to see what he says. And of course, you're going to be looking for inconsistencies between people in the house. I mean, at any point. And, what is he going to say about whether whether O'Keefe came, and he's the one who knows O'Keefe. You're the one who, invited him to the bar. You knew he was going to the house. Were you asking where he was? Were you trying to figure out, did anybody go outside and look for him? Was his girlfriend supposed to come or not? If you had gone outside, you might have seen him. I mean, you could just go on. And the crazy part is, I'm scratching my head saying, if you're the DA, why are you calling this one? What is the net gain from this Albert, or really any of them at this point? What are you getting from him at the risk of what's going to happen on cross, which, again, it's like a pattern here. If you haven't noticed that every time they call a witness, it just gets worse and worse and worse on cross. So I don't know why they're calling him. If it really relates to just more examination of what happened at the waterfall and who was wearing what clothes, and did you see them talking? Did you notice anything untoward? Did you see them fighting? Look, if you're a smart prosecutor at this point, cut bait, trim the case down. You're making it worse. If the defense is going to call him, so be it. But if you make the defense call him, the defense may be stuck having to direct him, not cross him, which is a big tactical edge for the other side. It's a lot easier to cross someone with leading questions than be forced to ask direct examination. So I don't know what they're doing.
Yeah,
that's not exactly breaking news. That none of us know what the hell they're doing either. So
it just got a little more exciting, though. I mean, knowing that Chris Albert, this is a guy that a lot of us know at this point, right, Mazza?
Yeah, it is for sure. Quite a long time, that's for sure. I'll tell you, there's going to be cross-examination on when Colin left the house. That's going to be one of the big questions
Right.
when he's on the stand. And now here's the thing.
And also, because the comment came in, Chris, too, he's given confusing statements about his whereabouts, too. So both of them.
Caitlin Albert was said to leave at 12:15, but also 1:45, just 2 minutes before the McCabe's.
Well, if he gave a statement, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. If he gave a statement saying I'm confused or inconsistent about whether I was there, never mind what time I left, then once again the needle is tilting heavy to the defense, and something sketchy is going on here, because that's ridiculous. You can't remember where you were the day you're a town selectman and a dead Boston cop was found on your brother's lawn. And you knew right away, and you can't remember, where you were. Really, nobody's going to believe that. Nobody.
Yeah, and all these different answers. Like they had, like I said, Caitlin, there was 2 different answers that they got. Was it 12:15 a.m. or was it 1:45 a.m.? And give us the truth here, you know?
Well,
So
that's
Right.
another, but that's another question.
They're always changing. You notice all
But,
of them, even the
but
police,
that's
EMTs, they're changing the stories.
that's another
Yep.
example that you had mentioned earlier, Mike, is, what information can you use just to throw out and run it off this guy and see where it goes? If he says I left at 12:20, oh, well, was Caitlin there? Did she leave? No doubt in your mind she didn't leave it. Like you lock down, and the jury's gonna, they're gonna put that fact away for later, and it's gonna come out like all these other interesting things. Like, for example, the other day, and this will happen when they get to Higgins, all that questioning about key swipes, if you remember, they got it out and then they just left it. Obviously, there's a point to that.
Yeah.
And then when he was crossing the Sergeant Good, I think, about the key swipes, he did get Sergeant Good to say something that I think strains credulity. I mean, again, we'll see how it plays out, but he basically said on a Saturday morning at 1:30, here comes Higgins, right? And
Yes.
that was totally normal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not unusual. Not
So-
unusual.
So here's what happens, and there's nothing unusual about any of this, I assure you. Higgins is squaring up to, wrestle or box with, he's basically a drunk federal agent or something close, is squaring up to, wrestle or fight the drunk cop in the bar about an hour before John O'Keefe is killed. Okay, fine. That's weird. He goes to the party. That's fine. He's partying. He's drinking. It's, Friday night and I'm having a good time. But it just so happens at 1:30 in the morning, I've got important federal business that can't wait, right?
Yeah.
So
What
I need
is
to go.
that?
I need to go to the Canton Police Department at 1:30 in the morning. Say, Sergeant, how you doing? I'm just, just another Saturday. Do what he does there. It'll be very interesting to see how long was he there and what he did. And then lo and behold, he goes back to the Albert House. What a weird thing. And then, he chucks his phone eventually. And, this makes perfect sense, right?
How the hell can they go forward to this?
I don't know.
I don't get it. I just don't get it. Like, when do they stop? When does this just not?
Higgins in particular is a really interesting witness, because if it's true, he made a federal proffer. Okay. If that's true, there is a really, really nasty crime that the feds use called 18 USC 1001. Okay. And that is making false statements to the federal government. It is actually a crime to lie to the feds. Okay. It doesn't have to be sworn like perjury. And this is the statute, by the way, years ago that they nailed Martha Stewart with. Okay. Not for her crazy trades and inside trading. She went to prison because she lied about it.
Yeah.
With the feds. So if they have a documented FBI 302 of what he said, now I don't know what he said, if he stuck to the story that, the Alberts are going with, which is, I see no evil, speak no evil, hear no evil. I'm just clueless, like Sergeant Schultz. I know nothing, whatever. But if he did kind of come clean, I don't know that he did or didn't, but then in the state case decides to deviate from that, then irrespective of whether there's a real large federal indictment or whatever, he could totally be exposed federally to that. So you have to think, if he really testifies, it's going to at least be consistent with, the FBI 302 that he gave, whatever that is. And if he's admitting that he tossed his phone, which I read somewhere, again, there's no evidence of that officially, I don't know. That's another disaster for the DA, because let's assume he doesn't perjure himself as far as the feds are concerned, but he goes in and he says, well, I was at the house. Okay. I was flirting with her. And what did he allege? Like we made out a couple days before.
A kiss. Well, there was one kiss.
Well,
yeah.
you know what? Maybe that's a motive. I don't know. I mean, that seems a little perhaps far afield, but who knows? But I was at the house. O'Keefe never came. I ran to the Canton Police Department on official business, which is ridiculous. And I went back to the house. And then after that, I decided the smart thing to do as a federal agent was to toss my phone.
Clock in. Yeah.
Okay. And the question, I mean, imagine the cross-examination on this and the jury to say, can you explain to me, like, seriously, you did nothing. Okay. You're not involved in any of this.
Right.
Other than making out with her a couple days before, again, could that be animosity for you and O'Keefe? Who knows? You never saw O'Keefe after you left the bar. Okay. Nothing happened. You don't know what happened outside on the lawn. So you're good. You're just a good guy, but you ran to the police department. Why'd you do that? He gives some bullshit answer. And then you went back to the house. Why did you do that? Party's over. Dead body on the lawn. Why are you going back?
Yeah.
And most importantly, by chucking your phone, you were trying to hide something when you're telling us under oath you had nothing to hide.
Correct.
This makes no sense. And he is going to be filleted if he testifies. And he's going to be, unless he's just spilling it all, which I can't imagine that, the DA is not calling him for that purpose, obviously. So you have to assume his story is still kind of, I know nothing, but he's going to have to eat the stuff about the phone and the trip to the police department. And I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions about, were you doctoring information about stuff? I don't know.
Yeah. Did you call Berkowitz? Berkowitz, you did a party for him. I mean, that's why Sean Good obviously has nothing to say about Brian Higgins showing up whatever he wants, because his boss Berkowitz got a party by Higgins. I mean, you know what I mean? So it's like Higgins is his best friends with his boss.
Now,
so what are you gonna do?
Good too. Said a few things which, look, he said he was the dispatch sergeant. That his job that day was to sit in the chair and twirl around and take the calls, put the headset on, and check your email and wait for the call. Whatever, somebody has to do it. Larger towns and cities have like dedicated 911 operators, not a real cop, literally. But that was his job that day. But what did he say? He got the call, and you know what he did? He called someone to come in and went himself.
He self-dispatch is what the Canton residents call it.
Anytime one of these people does anything out of the ordinary in connection with this incident, that's a red flag.
Flag,
why
yeah.
would you do that? And you know what else that does, which is interesting? If you have to call someone to come in because you're going to go to the scene, what else does that do? It causes delay. Why would you ever delay sending someone to a potential fatality on the lawn of what is another police officer? And then, of course, the wrong address gets logged in. If I was a betting person, I'm not, but if I was, I'd probably say that was good. I mean, who else could it be? Right?
Crazy.
But think about it in the sense of, we delayed a response because I had to have someone come in before I could go. And even though it's not my job, that's weird.
It is weird. The whole it's strange to me because we've been having, we talked to so many of these Canton residents.
Yep.
And they complained a lot about this self-dispatch thing that goes on in Canton, where cops get called not through 911, not through official channels, but through their cell phones.
Imagine that.
Certain citizens have access to, it's almost like they have a private security force called the Canton Police Department. And all of a sudden, in the middle of this, we see Sean Good self-dispatch. Basically, that's what happened. And it's just like, this is what, to me, is so shocking about all this, is like stuff that Sean McDonough said, stuff that Peter Murphy said, stuff that Turtle Boy said. All the stuff that the Canton residents said, it's all coming out. It's like Sean says, it's all coming out in the wash. It really is.
Out, and then we can leave this. I know this is not the biggest deal in the world, but as far as like self-responding, private cell phone calls, this is much worse because he got an official call, and for him to have somebody come in so he could go out causes precious delay when somebody, I don't know if it would have mattered here, but a minute could be the difference between life and death. Brain damage, God knows whatever. He knows he's out there in the freezing cold with some kind of body injury. And his first response is, let me find someone to come in so I can go check this out.
Bingo.
That's sketchy.
Yep. And what's the Albert, the brother of the Canton police officer, like Chris Albert, might get some questions about his brother, Kevin too.
Albert.
Yeah. There's going to be so many angles they can take on Chris Albert. That's what I just don't know which ones they're going to take tomorrow. But I don't get how the prosecution thinks this is a good idea
Oh, I
after the
mean,
week they had.
when you build a case and you have witnesses, I mean, any prosecutor other than apparently people in Norfolk County, Massachusetts, would say uh, you don't call a witness unless there's a purpose. Now, so what's the purpose in calling him? If the purpose is, okay, I want him to say that something happened at the bar and, that's what I need. Okay, so you say that's a reason. And then you say, what is the harm? And then at that point, the scale is heavily tilted that way. And you say, you know what? I've kind of lost the point that they were, having a bad day at the bar or whatever the purpose is. Maybe it's something we don't know, but why you would do this? Because to your point earlier, it's going to be a field day of exploration. Not so much that this Albert is the important one, but what does he know? What did he know? What do you see? What do you hear? What did you do? Does he know of any animosity between, I mean, hell, you could even ask him, I don't know how crazy you want to get, but are you aware of any issues between anyone in that house and John O'Keefe and Karen Reed? And he may say no.
Yeah.
And then you start a line across and you say, how close are you to Higgins?
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to this, by the way. You talk, you ever hear, that she and he had a thing for a day, and was there discussion about that? Or, how did it be that, how did O'Keefe end at the house if he doesn't really know people that closely? And even Karen doesn't know people that closely.
I want to hear about the beer cans on the lawn. There's this thing that coming, you could see the two sides. Like we've gotten this, a lot of us have seen the story from the both sides, from the Karen Reed side and the Chris Albert side. Right. And basically the story is that Karen Reed says they got pissed at John O'Keefe because the son was being disrespectful to John O'Keefe and cutting through his lawn and drinking and throwing beer cans in his yard. And I think John said something to him, and John went on vacation, and I think it was in Aruba. And when he was away on vacation, the whole family, Chris and the son, they were drinking beers in the ring camera or something. And they say that Chris Albert says, oh, no, we like John O'Keefe. This was just a joke. It was a fun joke among friends. So I would love to see Chris Albert try to explain that tomorrow. Like that is going to be, that's where I think it might go. I mean, don't you think so, Mazza? You think that's going to come up?
I think it will. And also additionally, I think they should try to keep him on that stand as long as possible.
Yeah.
I'd say upwards of 2 to 3 hours and just keep asking question
after
question. You've seen how some of these other guys, after about a half an hour, they kind of start off cool. Like Katie McLaughlin kind of tried to keep that, even after she got called off the stand and went back on. She kind of had some swagger there for about 30 seconds, and then it kind of just went and vanished into thin air. And it happened with Good for a bit too. He was like kind of just chirp. He kind of had his cop swag going. Then over time, he started to get frustrated. The same thing with Gallagher. He started to get frustrated as time went on. And I'd imagine, sorry, Chris, I don't know if you're listening, but I don't think he has the same kind of poise I don't think he has the same kind of poise and patience and ability to kind of withstand that kind of stuff, especially if it's like Alan Jackson or Yannetti prodding him over time. But I'd keep him on that stand for a while, and I'd ask very thorough questions. I'd ask every detailed question, and
there's another reason besides getting information that you might want to do that. For lack of a better term, I mean, look, a trial is like a battle. It's war. I mean, you could use this Albert as the sacrificial lamb. And what I mean by that is you come after, again, assuming there's a basis to do so, you come after this guy with these kind of questions. Everyone's watching. And by everyone, I mean the rest of the Alberts, the McCabe's, and whatever. And again, if some of these people did bad things, I don't know if they did or didn't. I'm not accusing, but there's certainly reason to think that they might have. And if they're concerned about that, they're not the most intelligent people. They're not the best liars. The whole thing does seem to be crumbling. The foundation of the whole, whatever they were doing that night. If this one gets chewed up, like you just said perfectly, Mazza, like Katie McLaughlin, who was, just totally sacrificed to the cause and had her reputation destroyed. I'm not sure how the other people are going to react and say, am I doing this? I could get in trouble. I mean, this Albert may have nothing to do with it other than just knowing a few things and shading a few details. But when you get to the Higgins, the real Alberts, McCabe, Proctor, as much as the defense wants to cross-examine these people and just absolutely destroy them, again, being a lawyer sometimes is like blood sport. I mean, you get more interested in cross-examining somebody like that than a woman who is saying, I just went to the bar and saw them being happy. As much as they want to do that, first and foremost, they want to win and get what they believe, with good reason, an innocent client completely, out of this mess. And if there is a way that they think it would increase the odds through their effective cross of Chris Albert to perhaps make some of these witnesses start waving the Fifth Amendment around, that's a win. I mean, that's potentially fatal. Now, will that happen? I don't know. Nothing to suggest it will at this point. But I mean, I would be seriously thinking about it if I was representing these people and had reason to believe they had problems. But, so I think they can use this other Albert, who's not as deep into this, as a test case and see how it goes. And of course, he could give them red meat to use against the other ones, depending on how bright and poised he is or isn't.
When you're in this type of situation of a trial and you have a witness list and you're on the defense, do they tell you who's going to be the witnesses tomorrow? Do you prepare that night, or do you just expect it could be anybody on the list? How does that work?
If they're professional, I mean, there's kind of a code. I mean, the lawyers are just the lawyers, and then you have this defendant sitting in the middle, and, it's weird because, the lawyers are all respectful to each other, and you're sitting there saying, wow, this guy really thinks she's guilty. And the DA is looking at those lawyers saying, wow, they really think she's not. But assuming everyone is professional, you would definitely tell the other side, this is what's coming up the next few days. It's not supposed to be trial by ambush. I mean, it's just not. I mean, there's no requirement unless the judge, sometimes the court can get involved and say, grow up, tell them this, tell them that. Let's not keep secrets. But I would be stunned that no matter how incompetent Lally is, and let's be honest, it's bad. I mean, it's cringe when you watch today in particular, but I haven't seen anything to suggest that he's not collegial with lawyers, and at least in that sense, not a bad guy. I'm not saying he's the best guy, the worst guy, but I would be stunned if
he's not doing that.
I hope not.
In this situation, how do they I just wonder how it works, because they're in court all day basically, and tomorrow is probably one of the biggest witnesses so far. Are they up all night preparing for this, or are they already prepared? Is it a few hours? Is it just old hat for them? How do they do this? How do they handle something like this?
Different ways. People do it differently. I subscribe to the be prepared earlier. It's not like whether it's tomorrow you've thought about this, and rather than cram all night, I personally subscribe to, I want a good night's sleep, as opposed to just, oh my God, let me go back and revisit this. I mean, I think any lawyer, whoever's doing the cross, is going to talk to the other one just to, talk ideas and maybe review some notes just so it's fresh. If it's something you haven't thought about in several days, but I would be surprised if they were burning the candle all night. I'm sure they've thought about this for months. And I mean, you can tell they're prepared, clearly more than the prosecutor, for sure. I mean, there's no question about that. Look, at this point, though, the DA has a lot more of the stress because he's the quarterback. He has to call the witnesses, line them up, do this. And what's stunning is he's doing this alone. I mean, I know he has a colleague who sits there, but I mean, by all intents and purposes, her job appears to be to hold the bag. I mean, they're not divvying up the workload and whatnot, which I'm surprised on a case of this magnitude. Usually prosecutors will bring other prosecutors in and just help. I mean, to give you a perfect example, today would have been the day where if you have a junior ADA who's maybe not as experienced as you, although this is a bad example because Lally's experience is meaningless here. But if you did have a junior ADA helping you, today would have been the perfect day. The bar people, these are not critical, important witnesses. A DA with 5 or 6 years experience can handle it. Do they get nervous? Yes. Everybody's watching. I get it. All of that. But, he had to spend a full day of 6 or 7 hours just getting battered and having everyone say, why is he doing this? And then here comes another one. And it's, again, it's like something from earlier today online, that meme with the guy who's just hitting himself in the head with a hammer. I mean, that's what Lally was doing today. It was just like beating himself over for no reason. But to your point, I mean, he lost a whole day of like mental preparation and just not doing everything. And he had to deal with these witnesses, and it was a disaster again.
To quote Chris Albert, it was embarrassing. You're embarrassing yourself.
Embarrassing.
Lally. You're embarrassing yourself.
Do they have videos of that, I wonder?
Yeah, we have videos of it. I on my YouTube. We broadcast that live. You're embarrassing.
What a town. This is not what I thought Canton was when, growing up in the area.
We've had select board meetings where like 10,000 people watching because of the drama that happens at them. It's amazing.
It is.
I've never seen select board meetings like this, but that, you know what? Every town has those moments. There was a moment in my town last night that people were talking about. It's hilarious. Yeah, I think watching town meetings, cable access is some of the most fun you can ever have. Actually, you get to see all the characters. Every single town or city I've been to, I always get to know the cable access people. Wayne's World. I mean, it's fun. It's just Cambridge had some of the best ones, I gotta say. I got a question here or comment from Dr. AB Normal. Says the other prosecutor should push Lally out of the way and say, "You F this up enough, I'm taking over." Can that happen? Can they say you're done? It's too late, right?
Practically speaking, yes. I mean, literally, no. But I mean, the first thing, if you're this other prosecutor, you've got the wrong attitude. Run for the hills, man. Don't run into the mess. Run away from the mess.
Yeah.
I mean, look, bless her heart. Nobody watching here knows her name. She hasn't really appeared on video. Get away from this. I mean, I got to tell you something. And, this just is a fact of being a lawyer on a high profile case that's being watched on, court TV and similar places and whatever. This is going to follow Lally around for the rest of his professional career. I mean, that's just a fact, whether people like that or not. And, you don't want to be the one who basically went gung-ho all in on the case that not only ends up in an acquittal, which is going to happen, but if it later turns out that, there was something nefarious going on. And, oh, by the way, the feds are indicting people in connection with your prosecution. And, they tried to warn you. I mean, if you couldn't figure out when the feds were investigating this, okay, if you're Morrissey and this band of people, whoever they are, to just say, maybe we should reevaluate and just, if nothing else, take a fresh look, a fresh investigation, which they clearly didn't do. No, the reaction of Morrissey
double down
was to give an unethical press conference as if he was the personal lawyer for all of these people who the defense are alleging are part of this. And, he should not have been doing that. If he wanted to say witness harassment is a bad thing, okay, fair enough. But when he starts vouching for the credibility of these people and then makes that statement that there's no relationship between Proctor and the Alberts, which is what he said,
which we know is BS. We've seen all the pictures.
Demonstrably false. And the only question is he stupid because he doesn't know how to investigate, or is he lying? Either way, what should be done about it is very simple. Get him out of there. Get him, sweep them all out. Whatever the result of this case is, I think it's clear that you need fresh eyes and fresh people in power, deciding who gets charged with crimes and who doesn't, because, she's going to get acquitted, but, they've destroyed her life.
Exactly.
And you have to recover from this, and you're going to walk around. There's always going to be these yahoos and
who believe it, like Grant.
Yes, and they're going to harass her. Yeah, they're going to harass her and say these terrible things. And, she's always going to be under that cloud of suspicion by some, because that's just the way it is. And, you just wonder, do you just get up, you leave town, start over? Who knows? But, even when she wins in this, which, she's going to, the damage is and it's her boyfriend that's dead, and you're accused of killing him.
Mm.
And if you didn't do it, that's just horrible.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, every cop that
I'm sorry. I was just gonna say, I hope she gets into like innocence projects, like, you know, helping other people in her situation, because I think she's gonna get freed. I think she's gonna be a celebrity, and I think that she would be awesome at that.
You know who did that? Amanda Knox. Do you know who Amanda Knox is?
Yeah.
She got heavily involved and is actually heavily involved in innocence work and all of that. And it would be something good for her to do. And, you know, a lot of people, I mean, out here in New York, it's kind of a big thing. Some of these guys even went to law school and became lawyers, and, you know, it's interesting. And they take their millions of dollars that they got in payouts. And I'll tell you something, if it can be established that she was the victim of, you know, illegal police activity, not just acquitted. I mean, people get acquitted all the time. It doesn't mean you have the right to a lawsuit. But if you have an incredible civil rights lawsuit and you can demonstrate that, you know, things happened, and certainly Proctor is in the crosshairs of that, she's going to get millions of dollars, and the people who are going to pay for it are going to be Massachusetts taxpayers, you know, federal taxpayers as well, because she'll have multiple lawsuits.
Yep. And the town of Canton. And the town of Canton. And, you know, she obviously deserves everything she gets, but the taxpayers are the losers for the cops who don't know what they're doing, or worse, and a DA who had the power to stop it and instead inexplicably doubled down and then started whining, you know, to the Office of Professional Responsibility, what we call OPR, which is kind of like the federal ombudsman of, you know, federal officers, whining that, you know, this is not fair, that, you know, the U.S. attorney has it in for us and is interfering with, you know, I mean, he sounds like a 12-year-old. Yeah.
I mean, it's pathetic.
It's crazy.
a lot of large scale, you know, stakes here too, because I mean, basically, you know, once Karen Reed's basically acquitted of all this, there's going to be a lot of questions about all the people that the Canton police have arrested, the state police have arrested, right up to the DA's office. They're going to have, and I think this is why they've tried to suppress this whole thing all along, is because that they know that the biggest outcome of this is basically an all-out explosion of truth and a lot of questions for that DA.
Let me tell you two things about that, which, first of all, I guarantee you right now, and again, I don't know how many convictions we're talking, because it is based on what I'm used to, a smaller jurisdiction, but anybody who was convicted based primarily on Proctor is licking their lips, okay? Because if he goes down, you at least have a legitimate basis to seek some kind of redress. And, you know, it doesn't mean every case is corrupt. So you're going to have defendants who are going to try to undo convictions based on what he did. And then the real problem is, you know, I'm told that he's the lead investigator on that Brian Walsh case, which is a horrid case. I mean, horrid of horrid, what he presumably did. Evidence in that case is very strong with our Google searches. I remember commenting about this to the New York Post previously, so I'm aware of that case a little bit. What role does he have in that case? Why is he still on it? And then in terms of like suing the DA's office and the state police, they're setting themselves up for even more liability, because they're now on notice that this guy is a dirty scumbag. They know it. Okay. I mean, the text messages, the grant, whatever. And he's still investigating and working open cases. I mean, he could theoretically be assigned to a new case tomorrow. So when she sues, when this is all over, I mean, the argument is going to be that the state just
Did
laughed.
nothing. Covered it up.
Nothing. They were given notice, and this is how serious they took his behavior. We gave him new cases.
Yes.
This guy should be shelved, even if they can't fire him yet for all, you know, work due process and all that. You put him on the shelf, you put him in the rubber room, and if you're lucky, he quits, and you get rid of him that way anyway. And they appear to be doubled down. And I mean, look, I would cross-examine him if he testifies about the Morrissey press conference. Hey, did you see that? Are you aware of that? Did you hear him say that? And you knew that wasn't true? Did you go to the DA and tell him? Did you tell Lally? Why was Lally saying for all this time there's no relationship? You never told him. You lied to him.
That's right.
Which I would argue, by the way, could make Lally a witness. But what do I know?
Right.
But the point is, there are so many ways to clobber him on all that time that he concealed that and lied about the gifts and lied about whatever else it is. And when the lawsuits come, that's why the DA's office is going to go down the drain to some extent with them too, because they
100%.
enabled it.
That's right.
Yep.
Get Adam Lally out there.
All the
He's on
dominoes.
record, on camera, saying there's simply no evidence of this and there's simply no evidence of that. And it's like, well, dude, there's evidence of this stuff all over the place. You guys keep denying it.
When it comes to the civil proceeding or a federal investigation, Lally will be a witness and he'll be asked, he'll be confronted with those statements and, very politely, can you explain what the source of what the basis for your representation? And, you can grill him on the ethical rules. Lawyers are bound by an ethical code about knowingly making false statements to the court or misleading the court or whatever. And, of course, he's going to say, I didn't do that. That's what I knew. Well, what did you know specifically? What did he tell you? And, so in other words, he lied to you, but did you look into this? And he's going to say no, because what they're going to say is when the cop tells me it's good enough, just like the lieutenant said, if Lally tells me it's the truth, it's good enough. It's going to be the same thing. It works in both directions with these people.
That's right. They tried to put all the chips on the table right there and go all in, and it's not going to end up, they're not going to get the hand that they think they're going to get. And they tried to suppress it. They tried to do everything they could, but the truth is out there. Just like they said, I hate to make an X-Files reference, but it's true. The truth is out there. The truth is on our side. Karen Read is factually innocent. And you're seeing that in trial. He called at least 7 people. Adam Lally called at least 7 people to the stand today. And every single one of them said things that were 99.999% favorable to Karen. There was nothing. I mean, if you're a prosecutor and you're calling people to the stand, you want people to come up there and say, Karen said this and Karen did that and Karen was mean and she was this and I definitely don't. There was none of this. Everything.
She spoiled the kids.
Yeah,
that was it.
That was it.
And that's not bad. I mean, to spoil those kids after they lost both their parents.
Maybe not the worst part, but I guess the annoying part for the peanut gallery like us and everyone else. He literally spent close to 6 hours. And I swear to God, what a real prosecutor could have done in about a half hour. And I'd say, if you want to use a second witness just to make sure, I get it. But what most prosecutors would never do is call 6 people to ask the same questions about what John O'Keefe was wearing. I mean, you have a video. It's clearly him.
Right.
No one disputes it. Even if you're going to call these witnesses, can we just get to the chase, what you saw, what matters, and get you gone? And look, jurors, they get bored. These are long days. And, it's funny because when we were first watching the first witness today, it was, my God, what is he doing? And somebody said, could they object to this? And I said, yeah, he could. Jackson could object. Relevance. We spent an hour talking about nothing. Well, why wouldn't he object? And well, there are a couple of reasons. One may be it's his friend. He's very upset. A sincere witness. I don't want to look like a brute. And so he let it go. But that's not why he let it go. He let it go because he knew after an hour of cross, I could get 5 minutes. Hour direct. All I need is 5 minutes of cross for him to say, God, they were in love.
Yeah, they were lovey-dovey. They were so lovey-dovey. They really liked each other.
Took them to mani-pedis. I mean, my God.
Right.
What an awful.
They were talking about, and the other guy, was it him or her actually that said they were planning future vacations?
Yeah.
That's
what an awful woman, treated the kids, spoiled them, whatever.
Yeah, spoiled 2 kids who lost their parents.
Right. It's
great. I think they deserve it.
Karen's defense team had 2 very major victories today against 2 theories that have been going on for months and months and months, especially by Alan Lally, the prosecution, of course, Adam Lally, and of course everyone that's basically been trolling our side of our movement. And that's basically, you had Rebecca Trayers up there today, who was a bartender at the Waterfall. What did she testify to? That no one was overserved. No one seemed intoxicated. Drunk. So that whole Karen Read drunken rage theory is now out the window. Additionally, Nicholas
Sorry, go ahead.
and yeah, one more point. Nicholas and Karina, the wife and husband we were talking about, that said they were lovey-dovey. They also testified that Nicholas said they were kissing. His wife had even said to him, "Why are you not like that with me?"
Yeah.
So that's now taking away the other thing, which is now the argument theory. So the Karen Reed is drunk theory, the Karen Reed and John O'Keefe for fighting theory, now are completely off the table. And the defense had to exercise little effort to even get that across because Adam Lally put those folks on the stand for him. And they basically just chipped it right in.
Yeah. And those trolls have been saying on Twitter just the opposite for months and months and months. It's so funny how the trolls are always wrong. It's weird. I got a question here, though, too, because I want to ask you this.
Can I add one quick thought?
Oh, go ahead. Yes.
Real quick, just before I lose this. And this is, again, this is from a lawyer's side of things, and it just makes your brain hurt. They want to establish that she's intoxicated. My advice to them would be do it through the people in the bar. Okay. Now, I'm not suggesting the bartender didn't tell the truth, by the way, but do you think calling the bartender on duty saying, I overserved them before they all went home and either got killed or committed a killing, and they came to my bar where I work. That's good for me. It's good for liability. I mean, no, that's never going to happen, whether it's true or not. The bartender is not, jumping on the grenade because Lally says, I need to show that these people are drunk. Maybe that's Chris Albert. Maybe it's others. So it's
good to have it on the record, though, right? That no one was overserved.
Right. But once again, Lally just leads with his chin. He just leads with his chin. It's insane.
So dumb. So dumb. It's true. I know I was in a bartending server for years. Yeah, we don't want to admit to that. We never want to admit that. Never.
The word is right now that Adam Lally's lunchbox will be packed with chicken parm, mediocre chicken parm tomorrow. That's the rumor on the street.
He's going to need it.
Lunchbox. He brings a lunchbox. Is that
it looks like his wife packs his lunch for him every time. It's a Turtle Boy joke. That was
he's going to need it.
He's
going to need it.
Good for him. I mean,
good for him. If he has a wife. We don't even know if he has a wife. Does he have a wife?
He's getting body blow after body blow, and
I hope he's got a wife. He's got to go home to somebody.
Listen, I know. The last thing I'm going to fault him is that somebody is willing to, pack his.
I hope. I don't care if it's a girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, wife. Somebody has to be there for this guy because he needs it. This is the question tonight, because this is something that's come up for a lot of us too, because we've been threatened over and over by all these trolls online.
Me just recently as
who a lot of us think they're the McAlberts. I think Chris Albert is behind some of them. Here's the question. My concern is that Karen could face a civil suit from the O'Keefes. Thoughts, Mr. Bederow?
Well, if she's convicted, which again, I think is not going to happen. I mean, literally, virtually almost impossible at this point. If she's convicted, she's toast. Yes. I mean, and the issues would be resolved. The civil case would essentially be over because she was found beyond a reasonable doubt for causing his death. If she's acquitted, is there this, again, anger, knee-jerk reaction? Somebody has to pay, and we still think it's you. Could they sue her? Sure. But that doesn't mean there's any merit to it. I mean, they're going to sue her for what? Some kind of wrongful death because you were drunk. There's no evidence of that. Because you ran him over. There's no evidence of that. So at the end of the day, we'll see where all the evidence comes out. But what is the factual allegation to sue her? I mean, if she's conclusively not guilty, and it also becomes clear that there is some kind of, misconduct, then I would direct my plaintiff's lawyers to people we spoke about earlier, the government officials and the other people. But, there are times, I mean, I have a client right now who's completely actually innocent, going to start a trial next week, actually. And her husband was alleged to have murdered someone. She had nothing to do with, literally nothing to do with it. And they lived separately, and he stashed a bunch of guns in her closet, and they searched it looking for evidence against him. And they ended up arresting her she had no clue the guns were in. She's totally innocent. But, people have to pay. And the deceased family believes, well, she must have been involved. She helped get him a gun. She's hoarding guns. And, she's getting sued, so she's going to go, on a criminal trial starting next week in Queens. She's almost certainly, hopefully, going to get acquitted, which I have every reason to believe. And then the question is, do the civil lawyers like wake up and smell the coffee and direct their anger elsewhere? I don't know. I hope so. Right now they haven't, but I would not be surprised if the O'Keefes do that. And I just hope, for everyone's sake, primarily John O'Keefe's sake, that his family gets justice, which is that they get a conviction for the right person, not a conviction of the right person, because I don't believe he can have justice if somebody's wrongfully convicted. And, but I do think it would be unfortunate if, even if she gets acquitted, which is the right result, that family never gets a real answer of what happened. That could be the case. I mean, I don't know, but if they do get real answers, then, another benefit of that is then they can sue the pants off the real bad people, not her.
I hope so. Comment came in: the trolls gaslit people for months. They only wanted to mess with Turtle Boy's following and credibility. Karen Reed was merely collateral damage. I think for almost all of them, except for the McAlberts, obviously, because they have skin in the game. So
That's right.
I think there's two camps of people, but most of them, I agree 100%, Megan. No question about it. That's why they hate me, because I had Turtle Boy on my show. I'm a liberal that had Turtle Boy on my show. That. They hated me ever since that moment. Didn't matter about Karen Reed. They didn't even know who Karen Reed was at that point. Kristen,
he's an instrument of exploiting their views and whatnot.
Exactly. There's a comment here from Charlie's Angel, says, "Can you play Turtle Boy video today with Grant?" I don't know, man. I'm having it. We got copyright strike today on our live stream because I didn't turn it off in time while I was dog walking, and it went to the NBC crap, which I didn't even want to air. So I'm very cautious about what we're playing on our feeds right now until we get this straightened out. And especially because, it's Grant, all the language that he uses.
It's my line. This is my line.
YouTube doesn't like it. Yeah.
Hey,
I mean, we can talk about it. What do you guys think about him? It's my line. Like, he owns the line. He bought it. He bought it with what money? Our money? He bought a line? Bought a line or what?
I think it's unfortunate that there is like this complete 3-ring sideshow circus of freaks that really, to me, are like, from the island of misfit toys. I mean, it's really bad. I think it's unfortunate that the two primary ones are literally mother and son. That's just unfortunate for a lot of reasons. But the problem is, even when you try to sweep them aside, he's causing harm. He's in the courtroom. Okay. He is calling himself a journalist. He's not. This is a case of major public interest. There are only 10 spots, which is pathetic anyway. And, the guy is so crazy that he sleeps overnight and then brags about being first in line and whatever. If he has a credential and he's there, I don't care. But, the things that he's writing, it's not journalism. He's an activist. He's threatening lawsuits. He's, today screaming and yelling at, Carney, who's there as a journalist now, today, screaming and yelling, calling him an accused rapist and, get out of my line, get off my corner. I'm going to have,
He's a gangster. Like, it's it's my corner.
Meanwhile, he's sitting there in like, ill-fitted sweatsuit.
You see those pants when he turned around, how saggy they were?
Times are different. I mean, in the old days, they'd throw you out of a courtroom. They would. I mean, I've seen people even not 10 years ago, defendants, they didn't have a tie on, and certain judge would be like, come back with a tie. And when you do, we'll talk to you. All kinds of things. But I think he's making himself, or wants to make himself, like his mother, like wants to be a part of this. I think he's a gadfly. He's just, this annoying busybody who professes to have expertise, just like his mother, who, knows nothing and is nasty. But he's, I don't know what it is with him. And I understand why people don't like each other with him and Carney and whatever, but screaming and yelling on a line of journalists outside the courthouse about, get away from me, you accused rapist, and whatever is really unstable behavior. And I'm not sure why anyone would let him have one of 10 seats to then, apparently he's watching a different trial than everyone too, because, I didn't see what he wrote today after the get off of my line stuff. But one can only assume that he's probably interpreting, this really compelling and devastating testimony from, the lawyer who said that they were all lovey-dovey because, that's going to turn out not to be true.
Right.
I don't know. Part of me
Chris
feels,
Albert's going to tell us about it. Some other people in from Aruba. I mean, you could see Lally today saying that. He's like, well, what's public isn't what people see behind closed doors.
okay. So let's assume they fought in Aruba. Okay. The problem with that is you're getting evidence from no less than 4, 5, 6 people today that literally within an hour of this poor man's death, him and his girlfriend were doting on each other, affectionate. She was telling one of these people how impressed I am with this and that. And look, are there going to be text messages that come after that in which she got pissed off because, he wasn't, where did he go? Which I guess the answer would be in the house. Why? I mean, Lally kind of walked into this. What could change it in that limited period of time? And I would suggest to you that a good explanation for that from the defense standpoint might be because I went to drop him off and he just went in and I never heard from him again. And I just sat and waited and was telling him, I'm pissed, I hate you, or whatever. But so again, once again, I think Lally is leading with his chin because by emphasizing today inadvertently, as it were, how good they were, something dramatic had to happen in that hour. And as good an explanation for that as any is she dropped him off, he went in, and then he never communicated to me again. Was he dead already? I don't know. Was he in the process of being led to his demise by these people? I don't know. But the fact of the matter is, if there are bad messages that post-state, how good they felt, I would ignore the online trolls and loonies who say, yeah, wait till those messages come out. There's a lot of ignorance.
Wrong every time.
There's a lot of ignorance out there, and some of them are just whatever. I mean, everyone has a right to an opinion, and she's guilty because I say so. But the thing I think that's very frustrating about a lot of the online ignorance are these self-styled experts who are not. They don't know. They don't have the credential to use what status they have to lead these people on. Like, I know something like the FBI agent woman is a perfect example. She has a right to an opinion. She might know a little more than the average bear based on a career in law enforcement. But when she tells you that this guy's guilty because I say he's guilty because this, honestly, she has zero expertise in this. Nada, zip, zero. She has no clue. So, and when she rounds those people up, and she's just one example, you get these people online who just come up with crazy stuff. I had one of them coming after me today, saying I was in it for, insurance fraud money. And I like, what?
Yeah.
I don't know any of these people. I don't know what insurance fraud money is too in this context of, a woman.
They just make up shit.
They make it up. Yeah.
I mean, I get so many. I'm in the CIA. I'm a Vatican assassin CIA dog walker. That was one of Grant's things for a little while. Ask Bob says, Mike, have you recovered Higgins' commentary from Berkowitz retirement party? Has Mark seen that video?
No.
Your commentary over that function was riveting theater. No, I to answer that first question too, no, I haven't recovered it. It's basically what I'll tell Mark about it. It's basically there's Berkowitz's retirement party was recorded by Canton Community Television, the local television access. I re-aired it a few times, talking over it, talking about it. And one of the things that we found out through Canton people, and it makes sense, Brian Higgins was there that night. There's a moment when the Canton Community Television kind of acknowledges him. You see the back of him. They bring the camera towards him because
what is the date of this in terms of the murder? When is this?
This was right after the murder.
Right after. Okay.
So Brian Higgins is there. The homeowner, Brian Albert is there. They're all sitting at the same table.
With Berkowitz.
No, Berkowitz is at the other table. So there's
Okay.
like kind of two front tables.
Okay.
They're in this other table over here. It might
Okay.
even be a secondary table, but they're one of the main tables. Berkowitz is kind of over here, but Berkowitz is really with a Rafferty over in the corner, like on the podium all night and greeting people.
Yeah.
Because it's a cop. It's a cop thing. It's
Right.
just cops and politicians all night talking about Kenny Berkowitz. And they acknowledge who organized the party at one point. It was Helena Rafferty, the new police chief for Berkowitz, deputy, basically, who we picked for the new job. And Brian Higgins. That's who organized the party that night for Berkowitz. Now, the rumor from Canton that everyone's been talking about is that Brian Higgins gave a speech that night. That Helena Rafferty then called Canton Community Television to have them not broadcast Higgins' speech, because Higgins said, if you want to, find someone to bury a body, go to Berkowitz.
Oh boy. Well, that's
now we don't know if that's true or not, because we haven't been able to track it down. Like, I asked the community Canton television people that I talked to about it. They said they were looking into it. I have not heard back.
It was a public event, though.
Yes.
Well,
and it was recorded, and you could tell. It seemed like he must have gave a speech. Why wouldn't he give a speech when everyone else did?
Is this
and the other one who didn't give a speech was Higgins too. I mean, Brian Albert. It's weird that both Brian Albert and Brian Higgins were there, but neither gave a speech, which is
So who said if you need to bury a body, Berkowitz is your guy?
Higgins? Apparently, that's the rumor. We don't know
allegedly.
that. Allegedly, this is all allegedly.
I know, of course. No, I hear you. But there's this allegation out there, and if you've heard about it, I'm assuming other people have heard about it, including our favorite Turtle, as they say, and people like that. And if word is out there, and it was a public thing, then I wouldn't be surprised if the defense has tried to subpoena that footage to the extent it exists. And if it does, and they have it, look out.
Yeah, I hope so. I would love to see that footage.
That's a bombshell. And he just happens to be the guy that finds the dirty piece of compelling evidence, Chief Wiggum style, just driving down the street, and there it is.
He's also the one that made a phone call to local press, not to mention Brian Higgins' name.
Right. That too. Forgot about that.
Gee, I wonder why the Canton police were conflicted. I mean, best friends with your buddy. The chief of police is best friends with him.
I got to roll here, Mike.
You got to go tonight, right?
Yeah, I'll get my final thoughts. So, I had a third point actually I wanted to make. So we talked about Karen. Basically, Karina and Nicholas testified under oath today that Karen and John's relationship appeared to be healthy at the waterfall, so that rules out any kind of feud. Additionally, we also learned that Rebecca Trayers, the bartender at the waterfall, also said that no one was overserved, so that kind of rules out Karen being drunk. And then additionally, Michael and Catherine Camarano both testified under oath that, more so Catherine, that Karen had called her up. She called Catherine, of course, and then said, was screaming, "Where's Mike?" asking for her husband, because Mike, as we know, is close friends with John O'Keefe. So that right there tells you what? It tells you that Karen was desperate in her search for John O'Keefe, and therefore at no point was that any kind of murder on her part ever really evidenced there. If anything, that exonerates her.
Isn't that so true too? Even calling the other two too, because if she had done this, why would she call anyone? Why wouldn't she just call the police maybe the next day, 10 a.m., say my husband never came, my boyfriend never came home, call the family. Why would she call these other strangers if she actually did it? That makes no sense. At 4:50, it was like 4:50 in the morning, right?
That's right. Correct. Yeah. Between 4 and 5 o'clock was what they said exactly. And that's a third point. So that clears Karen on 3 levels as far as I'm concerned right now. And like I said, it was a great day for Karen Reed in that regard, because they're just clearing her one step of the way. And it makes her look great. So that all said, Mike, thanks for having me. Marc Bederow, awesome talking with you, sir. Once again, love your perspective, and everyone have a great night and take care. And Young Jerks continues on, right, Mike?
Yes, for a little while. Thank you, Mazza Media.
Yep. Bye-bye.
We'll check you out on Twitter. He's got his YouTube, Mazza Media. What's up, Mr. Bederow? You have any final thoughts, Attorney Bederow, tonight?
Follow up on what he said. I thought there were really 2 critical things today that, I mean, look, the ship's been sinking since day one, but their motive took just a huge hit today. I mean, and everyone can see it. I mean, you don't have to be a genius to figure out that when the DA is telling you that we believe she did this in a fit of rage, that they left the bar a happy couple and even like just thrilled with the kids. And it just makes no sense. So I think that, but I think the other thing, putting motive aside, which is not an element of the crime, it always helps to be able to have it, but it's not necessarily something as important as this, which is that video at 5 o'clock in the morning, okay, of her hitting the car and driving away clearly with auto damage is so big. And if the DA can't do anything to dilute that, they're screwed, because even, and the Bruins just scored, by the way.
Nice.
So even if you think that she did this by hitting the car at 5:07, you're not going to be able to tell what damage came from wherever. So the only loose thread that was left for me, which I didn't know the answer, I wanted to see if they were going to lock this down, was how did O'Keefe's car end up where it was? And what and again, I'll confess to dozing a little bit today. Maybe I should pay better attention, but that's part of the problem.
Right.
I do this for a living every day, and I could not stay awake during.
It was tough. It was tough.
So I had to go back and even ask a few people and then go watch video and make sure I had this clear. And it turns out that the friend of John, the good friend, I mean, the first guy that he had the standing Friday night, let's go, and, had 5 or 6 beers before he picks up his kid, but that's neither here nor there. He was very sympathetic. He clearly was upset and didn't want to be there, but he conclusively established that, he moved that car, again, like an act of chivalry, essentially let the woman go in the garage in a snowstorm, and that the car was put to the side where she ultimately backed out. And when I came back there, when the shit was hitting the fan, what's going on? Where's John? That the car was in the same place, which means you can't establish that she set up the accident. If the car had been in a different location, you could argue, she moved it there to do something, and that didn't happen. So you have all of that. You've lost the motive. You have all the Alberts and McCabe's and the, Proctors and the phone records and the how long to die in the cold and burning the phone records and everything. And if that's not enough, the DA is willing to go forward and humiliate themselves, fully aware that these lawyers are going to call not one, not two, three accident reconstruction experts to basically say,
Yeah.
And I'll tell you something else. The fact that the feds called 3 is so devastating, because, the feds, they want to know, is there any merit to any of this? So they call an accident reconstruction person, right? I mean, you could see how this would happen.
Yeah, exactly.
And they tell the U.S. attorney, I don't think this fits. And you're going to say, holy, that's a development. We need to be sure. You know what? Call another
second one. Yeah.
Comes back. You know what? This doesn't fit. Now you say, one more time, got to be clear. This is a big, big thing. And you get a third one who says, this doesn't fit. And at that point, I don't care what the DA thinks. I don't care whether she's angry. I don't care that they think Katie McLaughlin.
Exactly. It doesn't matter. It doesn't. If the car couldn't do it, it doesn't. All that other shit doesn't matter.
It's
You're right.
over.
And Lally won't touch that shit. It's so funny.
It's unbelievable.
We had a comment following up to what you said earlier. They said the IT guy, and I want to ask Patty this: who is the IT guy? Is it the IT guy for Canton Police or Canton Community Television? But she says, Patty Murphy says, the IT guy Lewis is on the witness list because he was ordered by Rafferty, that's Chief Rafferty, the new Canton chief of police, to delete Higgins' 10-minute speech. So I guess that's right. Exactly what you said. They're bringing him on the witness list.
That, by the way, that the way I view these kinds of things, that's another bombshell waiting to fall.
Yeah.
And really, the question I would ask is, why aren't they calling Rafferty as well?
Right.
And what I would do, the way I would do it is this: I put them both on the witness list, and I'd call Rafferty first. Give her a chance to tell the truth or lie. Okay. And if you're going to tell me a lie during the cross, who's this IT guy? You know who that is? And ask her, did you tell him? And she'll, is it a perjury trap? Yeah, kind of. Whatever. And then you call the IT guy. But I would want the testimony of the current police chief in front of the jury that I told, because here's the other thing. The IT guy may not know the reason why.
Exactly.
Rafferty, you could come after. You have a good faith basis. She may deny it, but you have a good faith basis to say you did this because this lunatic said, here's where you go to bury the bodies. And by the way, when the jury hears that, if the case wasn't already DOA 17 times prior, that's going to count as 18, 19, and
yeah, right. It's going to be game over. I mean, I wonder if this person Lewis still has that video. I wonder if it's still in the database there. I wonder.
Hope Lewis is in a secure location.
Right.
I mean, no, all kidding aside, wow. That is, that's national front page news. I mean, given what this case is and what the defense theory is. And by the way, if you can't tell by now, a lot of the loons on the other side, I know they particularly have a real dislike for Yannetti for some reason. I don't know or frankly care, but the people who are attacking me was, why do you defend this corrupt? I'm like, defending anyone. I think he's doing a good job, but they have clearly backed up so far. Everything is falling the way they said the evidence they believe would come out. And these are very, very experienced, talented lawyers, no matter whether people hate them or not. And my point is this: lawyers like these guys are like a lot of the lawyers that I deal with. The thing you care about more than anything else is your credibility. And you try not to make statements that are going to blow up in your face. And I'll tell you what you don't do. You don't offer a defense that she was framed and all of this unless you have the goods, because the problem that you would have is if you promise the defense that they've promised, if the DA gets her in the car and hitting him, even if it's a love tap, but that there's evidence of that, you're screwed, because you said this didn't happen and it happened, and you're going after all these people. So real lawyers, and these guys are clearly what we call real lawyers, do not promise in an opening statement that kind of evidence unless they have it. You always underpromise and overdeliver, because nothing would look worse if they commit to something that blows up in their face. And so far, there's a lot of smoke to support the fire that they opened on.
He said he's the guy. Lewis is the town IT guy. He covers all things Canton. So apparently, I wonder about that, because would they run Canton Community Television? That's usually run by the cable company.
Here's the other thing, which is interesting. Video aside or not, another reason why, if you're Higgins, he was at this event. What is he going to say? And remember, he probably has a proffer agreement. He's got to stick to it. Berkowitz was at the event. But Higgins is going to have to explain and admit that I was kidding. Okay, fine. But you know what? That's a strange thing to say in a case like this, where a dead body is found right outside where you were, and then you went to the Canton Police Department, came back, and tossed your phone.
Right.
It's kind of weird, right?
Yep.
So, and then of course, Berkowitz, you cross him on this, you heard that. And just to be clear, you're the one who, found this driving by, right? The guy that they joked about was, the bagman to call when you want to get rid of a body. Okay. And then Proctor gets cross-examined on, why did you say your life would be better if Karen Reed was dead? How do you call these people?
Yeah.
How do you? I mean, this is such a train wreck, and we keep joking every time we talk that the train, it's getting closer, but it hasn't yet gone over the cliff. I mean, this is going to be like the most spectacular failure in a case of this magnitude on national TV. And I mean, the damage that's being done to that office. And I feel bad for the residents because their police department is humiliated and destroyed. And let's be honest, I mean, this part of Massachusetts is like a national laughingstock when you see what's happening. And that's terrible. But, you know, people are laughing at this. Not laughing. I mean, it's a serious case, but they're laughing at the presentation of evidence and the judgment of the DA. And of course, the behavior of, you know, the Keystone cops. I mean, that's what the Canton cops are. There's no getting that back. They're a joke, and they're never going to be able to salvage your reputation, because the next time, God forbid, somebody gets hurt seriously in Canton and you need a crime scene, you know, these dopes, we don't know how to do a crime scene. They said it literally. We have solo cups and Stop and Shop bags and temporary evidence containers in the refrigerator, and that's the best we can do.
Now, here's a good comment. They said, I bet this jury comes back really fast with an acquittal.
If it gets that far.
Yeah. Do you think usually if they come back quickly, that could be a sign of a conviction, actually, a lot of times. But in this case, it's you kind of expect it, wouldn't you?
I mean, this is every lawyer is going to tell you what I'm going to tell you is there's got to be an asterisk, a caveat here. None of us know what the hell a jury is thinking.
Right.
But I will tell you this, you have to understand, you know, the way a jury verdict works. It's got to be unanimous either way. So, and if it's not, and they can't agree on a verdict, it's a mistrial, which is an interesting thing to talk about next. But is there a sane person not living in Wendy World who actually believes that 12 out of 12 are going to say, I think they presented evidence beyond a reasonable doubt to a moral certainty, it's got to be her. Definitely her. To a moral certainty, I know it's her. It's not going to happen. So but on the other hand, are there 12 people who are going to flesh this out, talk about the accident reconstruction, all the other issues that we've belabored, and say that 12 out of 12 might say she's not guilty? Yeah. And would 12 out of 12 maybe come to that conclusion pretty quickly? Yeah. And then what's the alternative? A mistrial. And if there's a mistrial, I don't believe, no matter what the DA says they intend to do, that they would ever retry her, because the political pressure, and if you think the community outrage of this movement, that, you know, I know there's a huge movement and there's all these people and these
Facebook groups, we've raised hundreds of $1,000s. Free Karen Reed movement.
I read about all these standouts. Is that just like a protest or something?
They hold signs. Yeah, they hold signs.
Okay.
Build awareness.
Okay, that's going to be just a little bit bigger if it's so clear that she's not guilty, but like say one wackadoo juror for some reason, whatever, that the DA says we're fully prepared to do this again. It'll never happen. So, but I think that to me, I'm not so sure it's ever going to get to a jury. I mean, I never would have thought I would have said this a couple of weeks ago. It's trending more towards, I think it's at least possible that this thing literally implodes to the point where the DA, I'm not predicting this, by the way. I mean, how do I know? But these witnesses that are coming up are going to be so bad. The witnesses they've used so far should have been good. They're terrible. And, you know, once a jury theoretically hears from Proctor, McCabe, Albert, or Higgins, Berkowitz, and then you factor in some of them may or may not take the fifth, you factor in the accident reconstruction. It wouldn't even get to the accident reconstruction. I don't know if the DA is going to be able to finish their case.
Yeah, I know.
I really don't.
That's what it looks like to me. I mean, it feels like their back is already against the wall when they're bringing up Chris Albert tomorrow.
I mean, Chris Albert he's more interesting than, you know, the people that have gone before.
Do you want to watch the video of him calling that woman? Yeah,
sure.
This will be fun. It's quick. If I can get it up. Hold on 1 second here. What's going on here? My computer freezing up. Oh man. Okay. Here we go. I'm actually having an issue. It's not coming up.
It's all right.
Weird. Yeah.
But I was just to finish that last thought that I don't know if they even get all the way. I mean, is Lally really, given what we've been talking about today, you're going to call Higgins? You're going to call Berkowitz? You're going to call Proctor? You're going to call McCabe? You're going to call all these people? How do you look at yourself when you wake up in the morning in the mirror and say, I'm going to do justice, which is supposed to be the prosecutor's job, right? Their number one thing is not to get convictions, it's to get justice. And, I don't know how they can think with a straight face that getting justice here is proceeding on this case. Even if they think she did it, I mean, he's got to recognize that there's not enough evidence to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that she's guilty. And they ought to save face and walk away. They really should. They never should have brought it, as we've talked about in the past.
Awesome. I want to thank you so much for coming in tonight.
Sure.
I'm having some weird computer issues right now, which is funny. Like we both say we're not tech guys, right?
No, I'm definitely not a tech guy.
I've created like new desktops for my computer somehow. And I'm like, what the hell is this? I don't know. It's weird. Well, I'll figure it out. We always figure things out eventually. We're smart guys. But I want to thank you so much for coming on tonight.
Sure.
We've talked a lot. Is there anything else that you wanted to get out tonight before we kind of wrap it up?
No, I just, today, from a lawyer's perspective, putting aside what your feelings are in the case, to watch how the case was presented today was humiliating. I mean, a prosecutor has to be better in presenting evidence and strategy than Lally was today. And, this is not a first year ADA. It's not a simple, basic case that there's no harm done. There is a woman's life hanging in the balance, and they're deciding to go forward with this flawed case. And they have a guy presenting it who, I'm sorry to say, in my view, is unqualified to do so. And even if you think she's guilty, you must be at least asking yourself, why is this the guy doing it? And it's impossible for lawyers who do this for a living to comprehend that this is the best they can do. And, people were even suggesting, well, maybe he's tanking the case. He's not tanking the case. Listen, he's just not good.
Yeah.
He believes in what he's just not qualified. I don't think he's tanking the case. I think he's just not up to it.
Someone earlier asked what was his reputation before this. I don't think he had one, really. I don't think he was a known quantity. A lot of people said he did a lot of traffic cases in the past. That seems like more his style.
Well, maybe, but, I don't think you have to be a genius to say trying a few, speeding tickets and, moving violations and advancing to, murder, high profile murder of a police officer on another cop's lawn. Maybe there's like some learning ground in between the two.
Exactly.
But that also tells you then what the hell is going on in the Norfolk DA's office? How does it even become a thing that you take a traffic lawyer and say, here's the case? Why? Because it's an alleged hit and run. So we give it to the traffic guy.
Yeah.
That just speaks poorly of Morrissey more than anyone else.
Exactly. Well, I want to thank you so much. We'll be looking forward to seeing Chris Albert tomorrow on the stand. And are you going to come back this week? What are we doing? Are you got time tomorrow on Friday?
Yeah.
We'll be back.
Fascinating stuff.
Awesome. We look forward to speaking to you again. It's probably tomorrow night.
Okay.
Thank you so much. It's Attorney Marc Bederow. You can check his out. BederowLaw.com is the website. He's also on Twitter. Thank you so much, Mark, for being here tonight.
Take care. Go Bruins, right?
We're watching the Bruins. Thank you.
All right. Take care.
And I just want to read some donos out and thank everyone. It's been a lot of super chats tonight. We just got a new one from Dr. A.B. Normal. Said, what is your opinion on the judge's rulings? Depends on what rulings. I actually like that she's letting in this third-party defense. She could be a lot worse. But I agree with people, the sighing and all that stuff. It seems like she's starting to get it under control. Like I said, I think she might be listening to either this show or some of the other shows that have been going on about her sighing. Because I kept saying she needs a mute button. And I think maybe she has a mute button now or something. Something seems to have changed. I want to thank everybody who's contributed tonight. 70s, 80s, vintage. Thank you so much for the donation tonight. Thank you, Dr. A.B. Normal, for the donations. Thank you for Ask Bob for the questions and comments and the donations. Patty Murphy, thank you for the donation and the information tonight. And also Wicked Sight, thank you so much for the super chat. Megan, thank you. Kristen, I'm so appreciating all these donations. Like, I'm not going to be able to get through them all. Charlie's Angels. Sarah Clancy, thank you so much. Tracy Collins, thank you so much. Just trying to get through them all. Free Karen Reed, thank you for the donation. He's also got a Twitter account too. Check that out. Stacy Norton, thank you for the donation tonight. Dag Nabbit. Did I say that right? Yes, Dag Nabbit. Thank you. Melissa, Suzanne, thank you. Guys are humbling me. This is crazy tonight. Cynthia Lynch, thank you. Tracy Collins, thank you so much. Deanna. Wow. Carrie. Crazy. We got multiple from Carrie and Charlie's Angel. Nicole Rico, thank you so much. Yeah, we're going to get him back more too. I know we missed him for a night and everyone was jonesing. Lynn Jutras, thank you so much. Oh, and thank you, M. Our moderator, she rules. I'm supposed to be giving you stuff. I've been thinking about that, M. Like, what? I got to get you some gifts or something. And here she is buying memberships for people. She's our moderator, and she bought 10 memberships for people tonight. Thank you so much, M. MJ. She's awesome. Lisa Peralt, thank you so much. Amazing. And Marie, thank you for becoming a new member. We just Marie is and M with Marie and M tonight. MJ, we got over 100 members now. We may have to do some private member shows. I've never done those. We'll see. We got to do something. I want to thank everyone who's supporting us lately. We're almost at 10,000 subscribers on YouTube. That feels really good. I can't wait. I think it's going to happen in the next day or two. Maybe it happened tonight. Help us out. If you haven't subscribed yet, like more than half the people who watch the show don't subscribe. If you all just hit that subscribe button tonight, we get to 10,000. What are we at right now? 9,657. So let's get like 350 more tonight and get to 10,000 by morning. I want to thank people for the Venmo donations. I think I saw a few of those come in. Let me just check those out too. Any messages, we'll read them off. I also want you to check out, I'm going to post the video actually, the short version of it. But the governor's council debate that we streamed live last night, you got to check that out. Mara Dolan, she was amazing. She destroyed this liar, total liar. That's the incumbent. You got to check that out. That's some good content. I'm going to probably do a premiere later tonight on that with the edited version. Melanie, thank you so much for the donation tonight. She says, thank you for your time and effort. Glad you're here for Free Karen Reed and the rest of us. $5. Thank you so much, Melanie, for the donation on Venmo. I love this one. Ruby sent me $5 and she said, Grant is an irritant. She sent me $5. I'm glad that someone sent me $5 because they don't like Grant. That's like the best thing that could happen. Thank you, Grant. Janice sent 20. She said, thank you for your faithful streams and great guests. I'm a little worried about streaming tomorrow morning, actually. I'm going to stream it, but I'm worried about clicking it off in time before the feed turns into something else and we get copyrighted striked, which happened today, actually. So I want to thank everyone for the Venmo donations. I'm just going to check the Cash App too. Again, check out that debate. We just aired it last night. It's great content, dramatic, tells you a lot about what's going on for the Governor's Council and why you should check out Maradona. Doesn't even matter on policies. It's about character, not lying, listening to people. Paul James sent $20. He said, for Marc Bederow's commentary. Thank you so much, Paul, in the Cash App. Carrie sent $5. Thank you, Carrie. All right, I want to thank everyone for supporting, listening, checking us out. Just checking to see if I missed anything important. Looks like we're good. What's this one? Is a comment. You've had over 2,000 people in the chat tonight. That is true. That may be a first too. Right now we have 1,600, which is crazy. Just listen to me talk about donations. We had over 2,100 for a lot of the show tonight. I think that might be the first time that we had 2,000 live. We had Rita the other night on, and it seemed like we broke a live record on our stream. We had like a lot of numbers. And tonight we beat that again. So our numbers are moving up. April was like the best month on this channel ever. And this first week in May was even better than that. So it's unbelievable. I'm shocked how many numbers we're pulling in now. But yeah, we got a good mod. We got MJ keeping everyone happy and safe in the chat. We got good guests. We spend time trying to, provide the best guest for you on this show. So I guess I shouldn't be surprised. And Patty says it's free to subscribe. Yes, it is. Marsha says, unfortunately, can only subscribe once. Yes. But I appreciate it. Just doing it that one time. Everyone wants to know where Sean is right now. I talked to Sean actually yesterday. He's got some personal stuff. I kind of want to say it because I want people to know what it is, but I don't want to I didn't ask him if I could break it to the world, but he's got some stuff going on, and I'm sure he says he's going to try to come back next week. I want to try to get him on the show again. So it's just, we all have things in life that come up. He's just dealing with some shit. But I'm pretty sure Sean will be back next week. You're right. I don't have to say. Just Sean's going through some stuff. Nothing big. I don't think it's anything big, but it's, sometimes we have these emergency things in life that happen. You got to deal with them. Sherry D sent $4.99. Thank you so much, Sherry. Yeah, we do miss Sean. Get Peter Murphy on your show. That's funny. I've been trying to get Peter Murphy on my show since for months. For months and months and months and months. Just hasn't worked out. We actually talked on the phone for like an hour one day. And we've been texting back and forth. And he told me he's going to come on eventually, but it just got to be the right time. And he just doesn't. He told me that he doesn't want to take the focus on what's going on at the trial right now. Cheryl Kelleher sent $9.99. She said, thanks, Mike. Thank you so much, Cheryl. Really appreciate that. You guys have been wicked generous to us tonight. Thank you so much. All right, it's 8:30. I'm going since 6. It's almost 2.5 hours. I'm going to go take a break now. I'm going to head out. I'm going to thank you so much, everyone, for watching and donating and showing up. People want to know, can Mark practice law in Mass? He'd have to get accepted by the bar, but I'm sure he could. Does he want to travel to Mass is probably the better question. I guess he wouldn't mind that because he's from Massachusetts and he comes for the Celtics games anyway. So Enjoy the walk. How did you know I had a walk to do? I always have a walk to do after this show, don't I? This isn't really a walk, though. I got my little dog. I take him out for a quick little pee run. Thank God I don't have to do what I did the last week of shows. When I said I had to go out, I had to go out. I had to, like, I'm going one end of the town to the other end of the town, 2 different towns, back and forth, different dogs. It was nightmare. Been working too much. Tonight's easy. Tomorrow should be easy for me too. I'm looking forward maybe to have almost an entire weekend off, no work, unless I do a show. But that's fun. I haven't had a day off in several weeks. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you for contributing, and thank you for supporting, listening, watching, asking all the questions. And most of all, thank you for supporting Karen Reed. If you are new, I know we have a lot of new people lately. You can support Karen Reed right now, freekarenreed.net. She's still raising funds for her defense. There's also the Canton 9. You should check them out too. And the Turtle Boy Defense Fund. All of those folks are facing charges right now. If you want to support financially, you can also support those defense funds. I need water. I'm like tongue-tied. I'm like Kevin now. I'm slurping on air. Thank you guys so much. I'll see you maybe tomorrow night. I think it's going to be tomorrow night. We'll be broadcasting in the morning. The stream again from court. And then maybe tomorrow night. We'll see everyone soon. Thank you so much for supporting.